just a neon sky to which the sun so quickly unsubscribes. Wanna call it a night, but I think they might be on to us.
Majority Report with Sam Seder, where every day's Casual Friday. That means Monday is Casual Monday, Tuesday, Casual Tuesday, Wednesday, Casual Hump Day, Thursday, Casual Thurs, that's what we call it, and Friday, Casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
It is Friday, January 19th, 2018. My name is Sam Seder. This is the five-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, it's Friday, folks. Oh, so casual. I'm not even wearing a collared shirt today. That's how casual I've gotten. Digby from the blog Hullabaloo will be joining us. And Judy Gold from the blog judygold.com will be joining us. Meanwhile, a shutdown looms, and it seems the Senate Republicans are in revolt. A shell company was used to buy Stormy Daniels' silence. Now the question is, whose money was it?
Drug dealer. No big deal.
Very possible. And while the Supreme Court temporarily halts North Carolina's redistricting order, probably going to help the Republicans in the midterms. Meanwhile, Democrats in Chicago are looking to boot the incumbent Dan Lipinski. Elected Democrats endorsing a challenger. Good for them. And Trump's bigoted AmeriCorps head goes bye-bye. Puerto Rico rejected by FEMA for a FEMA emergency loan because they've got too much money. U.S. drops some of its charges against the J-20 defendants. 129 of them will go on misdemeanors. However, the felony charges remain. The Ohio Senate passes a fetal tissue burial bill. And sad Chris Christie, now an NVIP. All that and more on today's program, ladies and gentlemen.
Be pathetic, Chris.
Yeah, I want to save that story for when Judy gets here because I know she's extremely excited.
Oh, she's going to be salivating.
She's going to be very, very happy about that story. Just a reminder, this show relies on you, on folks just like you, for its continued existence. By becoming a member of the Majority Report, you support the free show, and we say thank you by giving you extra content daily. Join themajorityreport.com. We are anticipating a special guest at the end of today's show, approximately 2:30.
Looking forward to it.
I will give you a hint. Now, sometimes these things fall apart. There's been times in the past where we anticipated this person calling in, and they did not call in, and usually don't mention anything about it, but I'll give you a little hint. This person works in the U.S. Senate. There's a hint for you.
Killed the joke there.
And you'll like it. Oh, it's not Barack Obama? What?
Yep. Messed it up.
But why would Barack Obama show up? Why would the Barack Obama voice? Oh, I see what you're saying.
See, when you were teasing it before, it's fine.
I'll tell you
It's fine.
something. To
Don't
be
worry.
honest with
Don't worry
you,
about
I
it.
mean,
Okay.
if I get a call from Barack Obama's people that said Barack wants to call in, I'd be like, okay. But I wouldn't be that psyched about it.
Fair enough.
I'm more psyched about this guy calling
I'd
in.
be like, there's a much more interesting version of Barack Obama that appears regularly on this show.
Right. Yeah. I mean, well, I don't need it.
If
so
we
much.
could set up a dialogue between Nation of Islam, Barack Obama, and Barack Obama, that would be really interesting content.
Also, want to welcome in studio one of our longest time listeners. Nicole is here, and she has been responsible. Anything graphically that has looked like it's done by a professional, as opposed to sort of the other ones that we've had, Nicole has been responsible for, going back to the Break Room Live days, ladies and gentlemen. Just a reminder that my favorite mattress in our house, our apartment, is Sol's Casper. And it is a sleep brand that continues to revolutionize its line of products to create an exceptionally comfortable sleep experience one night at a time. With 3 mattress models, the original Casper, that's the one I have, I love it, the Wave, and the Essential, Casper mattresses are perfectly designed to soothe and cradle your natural geometry. Not to mention, the breathable design helps you sleep cool, regulates your body temperature throughout the night. That's my big thing. I need body temperature regulation. Because I get too hot in all circumstances.
No, it was just the accent I liked. You went real mass on that one. It was just like, I need body temperature regulation.
Yes.
My husband says I'm a sweaty Semitti, so maybe that's what you've got going on too.
A sweaty Semitti? Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh,
Yeah.
that seems inappropriate. It's here's the thing. It's delivered right. I'm sure he means it in a nice way. It's delivered right to your door in a small, how do they do that, size box with free shipping and returns in the U.S. and Canada. But the best part is you can be sure your purchase with Casper's 100-night risk-free sleep on it trial. That's right. Sleep on it for 100 nights. If on night 99 you're like, I just don't like it, then you can send it back. But I guarantee you, you're going to love this mattress. Start sleeping ahead of the curve with Casper. You get $50 towards select mattresses by visiting casper.com/majority and using the code majority at checkout. That's casper.com/majority. Offer code majority for $50 off your mattress purchase. Terms and conditions apply, but you're going to love the mattress. So check it out. All right, let's take a look at this. We've talked about Mark Stein. He fills in for Rush Limbaugh occasionally. He is a Canadian who I believe has been hanging out on our side of the border, somewhere I think up in Vermont.
He lives in Vermont?
That is my belief. And I think he writes also for the National Review. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that is true.
And my feeling is like we have plenty of conservatives here. I'm not sure what he's bringing to the party. Why would we let this guy in? I mean, when you think about the all these Republican immigrants, like Seb Gorka, who is wanted for gun charges. I mean, this is a man who's obviously coming from Hungary.
Keyword, man.
Yes, and we get the worst of them, though. We get the criminals are sent here from Hungary, apparently. That's the problem. But here is Mark Stein, and boy, he's a pleasant fellow. You know, a lot of people think that there's nothing redeeming about a white supremacist, but apparently, according to Mark Stein, there's at least there's one attribute that's pretty good.
Interesting is that both he and Nancy Pelosi and others on that side of the aisle are getting ever more explicit in their preference for illegal immigrants, so-called, as he would say, over American citizens. He said, Chris Cuomo went on to say that the real problem is white supremacists in America. They're the real monsters, not these nice, hard-working illegal immigrants. And that may be well and true. I mean, for the purposes of argument, let's just say he's right. It's irrelevant. The white supremacists are American citizens. The illegal immigrants are people who shouldn't be here. And the organizing principle of nation states is that they're organized on behalf of their citizens, whether their citizens are cheerleaders or white supremacists or whatever. You're stuck with them. And this preference that Nancy Pelosi and Chris Cuomo and increasing people have for actually importing a class of citizen that they prefer to the ones they're stuck with is actually very revealing. And in fact, to go back to what your Swedish guest was saying, you know, whatever the economic benefits, which are minimal and are not evenly distributed, the cultural transformation, which is what's happening in Sweden, other parts of Europe, and is what's happening in Arizona too, that's forever. In Arizona, a majority of the grade school children now are Hispanic. That means Arizona's future is as an Hispanic society. That means, in effect, the border has moved north. And the cultural transformation outweighs any economic benefits that lady was talking about.
I understand.
He was losing his breath at the end. Did you notice that?
Yeah, I mean, he was getting so excited. Well, so let me get this straight. White supremacists are at least citizens, and the important thing is not just about citizenry anymore. It's also about the degradation of our culture, the Latinoizing, the Hispanicizing of our culture. That's the thing we should be worried about. Although not citizenship, right? Like he's sort of pivoted from all of a sudden citizenship and culture. And, you know, for that guy with that horrible accent to be on my American television talking about you want to talk about
Degrading culture.
Degrading culture. Here is a clip of Mark Stein's music video where he is. Yeah, here it is.
Oh my God.
Go ahead. I taught a putty tat is the name of this song.
No.
That pussycat is very bad. He sneaks up from behind. I don't think I would like it if
What
I
the
knew
fuck?
what's on his mind. I have a strong suspicion.
You out of your mind?
You know,
The balls of these people.
It's
unbelievable. But no, but like it actually is. I'm totally past the unbelievable point.
Hold on,
completely
wait
always.
a second. No, you see, it's all he only sings about cats.
This album is called Feline Groovy Songs for Swinging Cats.
oh my God.
And I can't tell if it's.
I was snoozing on the sofa when she came in from work. She started baby talking, and she sure didn't shirk. How's mama's pookie wookie? How's her big sweetie pie? I kinda smiled and I opened one eye. Yeah, mama's gone get lovey-doveys. Had a hot day. I was just
Okay, we've had to stop. I honestly, like, I think I might sprain my jaw.
On behalf of someone who likes to sing songs and change the words to make them about cats, I am offended that he is disrespecting our traditions in this way. Also, if anything, I think these videos are going to make people like Pelosi want to take it a step further.
No
For
kidding.
every illegal immigrant from the Latin diaspora that we allow into the country, we're going to deport one white supremacist.
Yes, I think that's probably where we should go.
Build a wall in Canada.
Exactly.
Build a wall on Mark Stein.
All right.
Like, literally a contained wall for one person so he can't speak or interact with other humans. He should be in a walking solitary confinement. That is the most bizarre.
I don't know.
Nothing
know.
surprises
There's nothing.
me. People can come
We
in today and be like, hey, Trump peed on the ambassador today and said, yeah, I do deals with Russians. And by the way, people say I hate Haitians. You know how much money I laundered for the Duvaliers? Totally unfair. And I'd be like, yeah, of course. That's not surprising. That was shocking.
All right, we got to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking to Heather Parton or Digby. We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report on the phone. It is a pleasure to welcome back to the program Heather Parton, or as you may know her from her blog Hullabaloo, Digby. Hi, Heather.
Hi, Sam. Happy Friday.
Yes, it's another week in the era of Trump, and a fairly interesting end to this week, and one which we don't necessarily know yet. I guess, and that is the government going to be operating tomorrow?
Yeah, we've got quite a cliffhanger here. I mean, let me just say for the record that I knew from the very beginning that the House was going to pass whatever Paul Ryan put in front of them, including the Freedom Caucus, because they are this idea that somehow they have principles and that there are these, right-wingers in the House who just really care about deficits, et cetera, was a crock. They're now all full-fledged, Trumpies. So I knew that was going to happen. So now all the action is in the Senate, where I think anybody watching closely knew it was going to end up because, they've got a very narrow margin. And we're looking at a showdown in the Senate that looks like it's going to go on throughout the night. I was just watching TV and saw Mitch McConnell saying the Democrats are going to own this craziness. And I'm kind of going, guys, you've got a patent on that brand right now, okay? When it comes to craziness, that I think most Americans are going to know who the crazy people are. It's pretty clear.
Well, let's just stay in the House for 1 second. So there were only 6 Democrats who voted for the continuing resolution, which was actually less than I thought it would be.
Me too, because Nancy had actually freed people.
Yep.
That once the Republicans had the vote, she said, "Hey, do what you think you need to do to keep your seat." And only 6 went, which I thought was really surprising. I really don't.
Yeah, I mean, 2 were from Texas, 2 were from California. I don't necessarily follow that.
They're suicidal. That's all you can say about that.
Honestly, and one from New Jersey. I mean, not anybody I really knew. Peterson from Minnesota. There were, I guess, about 8 or 10 Republicans who said no. And Jones was one of them. He votes. That's the way he always votes. It seems to me. And a couple other, I think, Amash and a couple other supposed, serious conservatives. And then some who I think were like, Ross Layton in Florida. I think maybe she was just like, I don't want a part of this. I don't know. But so we go to the House and already, in the Senate, and just to explain this to people, in the House, Democrats don't have to participate. They could have just avoided engaging in this at all by voting no. In the Senate, Democrats have to actively filibuster the bill, to avoid to basically kill this. And so that means that they could theoretically lose 9 votes in the Senate and still prevent this from coming to the floor. But it sounds like now Lindsey Graham and Jeff Flake as well. But Lindsey Graham is the one who's going to make a real show of this, that he is not going to vote for it. He said he is just. What's amazing is Lindsey Graham has already become John McCain in the sense that he is really mad because his deal got rejected. And you could talk about this. I know you've written about Lindsey Graham's sort of grand adventure with Trump. And now he's pissed. And now he's pretending like it's not regular order. I'm tired of these 30-day continuing resolutions, when in fact he's basically saying, like, I was treated poorly.
Oh, that's absolutely right. I mean, he is very unhappy about this because he worked. Well, first of all, he pretty much, flushed years and years of hard-won reputation as independent guy who speaks truth to power, right it down the toilet, down the S-hole. When he started cultivating Trump last summer and basically became his chief toady and courtier by, look at his he's got a great golf swing. He's so intelligent. He's such a great guy. Nobody should call him a kook. He's, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And he did all this in order to curry favor with Trump, quote, gain his trust and be the guy, the power behind the throne. I think he really, Lindsey Graham, like John McCain, as you point out, really thinks highly of himself and figures that he's the guy who could fix this Trump problem by gaining his trust and flattering him. He decided he needed to do that. Well, it obviously did not work. And Graham actually cares about immigration. That's one of his big causes. He's been trying to get an immigration deal for a long time. To his credit, even though he's a right winger, he really wants to do something that makes, that both sides can at least agree on, and certainly on DACA. So, to his credit, he really thought he was going to be able to do this, that he had the credibility, that Trump trusted him, and of course we all know the story of what happened. They went in with a deal, and Trump had been worked up into a frenzy by John Kelly and the rest of the hardline right-wingers, and he exploded into a vulgar tirade, and that was that. And that's why we are where we are today. Had that not happened last week, they would have had a deal, and they could have gotten through this whole thing, and everybody would go, gee, look how smoothly the government's running all of a sudden. Instead, Trump had a tantrum. And a tantrum that was ginned up by people like Tom Cotton and Bob Goodlatte in the House. These are super immigration hardliners who basically want to end legal immigration. This isn't really about DACA or anything else. They have a really, really hardline agenda written out by Stephen Miller and Jeff Sessions in a handbook that was put out. Everybody can read it. It's called the Immigration Handbook for the Republican Majority, and it was written in January of 2015. It's online. You can go look at it. It tells you exactly what these people are trying to do. Anyway, that's where Lindsey Graham, he got stabbed in the back, and he is pouting now, and he's upset, and he is making it impossible between he and Flake, and McCain is missing too. He's not there. They can't get to 50 votes. And So Mitch McConnell can sit here and tell the Democrats could theoretically say, no, we're not going to filibuster. You take care of it, Mitch. Go
Right.
ahead, get your way. They could do that. I don't know if they're going to. It's a big risk because who would ever trust Lindsey Graham?
Right.
Or Jeff Flake?
Right.
But nonetheless, that is, where we're sitting right now, we're looking at a Mitch McConnell who cannot round up a bare majority, much less 60 votes. And, sorry, I think everybody in the country can see what's happening there.
And, I mean, give me your sense of what I understand is that, and I've heard, is that if the Democrats in the Senate feel they're going to get blamed for the shutdown, that they'll cave. The blame is not just in that moment, right? I mean, the shutdown happens, but then theoretically it could be ongoing. And so there has to be an ongoing effort to make sure, from the perspective of the Democrats, that the Republicans are taking the blame for this. I know polling right now shows that most people would blame the Republicans, and why wouldn't they? They control both. They control both branches of government. But you could have the filibuster, right, and then still say this is just a function. It doesn't matter anyways because Flake and Graham, leverage that, right. I guess, because this seems to me to be about who the press thinks is to blame. And less so than in the past, there seems to be more inclination to not blame the Democrats.
Well, at least, I see a little bit of that where the press, they get very self-righteous and go, well, why don't the Democrats step up and do why can't they govern, the usual nonsense? But I'm seeing less of it than usual, as you point out. And I do think that, Mitch McConnell standing up in front of, on the floor of the Senate saying, Democrats will own this craziness, that just does not track with right. The American people. It just doesn't. The craziness, everybody knows where that's coming from. Now, having said that, I don't think that the Democrats have made a very strong case for that yet. Now it's hard for them to get any airtime. There's so much stuff going on that I know it's difficult for them to even get a chance, a platform to say much about all this. But if the shutdown happens, they'll be on TV and they'll be challenged, and I'm fairly hopeful, especially if they hold the line. If it's not a matter of a few red state Democrats peeling off and they just can't get to 60,
right.
If it's actually they just hold the line all the way, I think they have a strong case to just make, hey, look, we weren't asking for much. We want to save some kids. Is that too much? You couldn't let us save some kids. That's all we're talking about. And I do think that the American public understands that it's the Democrats who want to save the DACA kids, and it's the Democrats who want to get the CHIP program funded. Those are Democratic priorities. Nobody's going to mistake that for something Republicans really want, and the Democrats won't let them have it. They can try that sort of phony stuff, but I don't think it'll fly. But hopefully the Democrats come up with a strong set of points that they can elucidate for the press and keep them on board, because the press is, of course, not trustworthy in this sort of thing.
Right, and they're the only constituency that matters in some respects, because it seems to me the people, just voters or citizens or poll respondents, they're not going to dig into the sort of the nitty gritty of the process, right? They're just going to take the top line evaluation of the media. They're not going to say, well, the Democrats are filibustering and, Flake and Graham, they're not making this level of analysis. There's no huge group of, let's say, undecided voters who are that into the process part of this, that they're making that analysis. It's just going to be a function of the media and the way that the media tells this story. And I guess that's going to be that's basically what it's going to come down to. It's just, as long as Lindsey Graham and Jeff Flake are out there saying, I'm not voting for this, then they don't even have 50 votes. They don't even have 50, never mind 60.
They don't. Yeah, if they can't get to I mean, everybody understands that, right? I mean, look, if you can't get all of your own people on board, which the House successfully did, and that was a line that was being used in the House, and I think everybody was focused on that. This idea that the Freedom Caucus, they're gonna put a
right. We got to wrangle them, and it's really hard.
Yeah, we got to really give them. They don't want to do it because of the debt and blah blah blah. And I'm just sitting there rolling my. I'm going. No, you're living in the past. That the Freedom Caucus is not a group of principled conservatives. Okay, they're a group of right wingers, and basically their function in life is to be the worst, most far right caucus in the House. And in this sense, in this case, that means that they are on the side of Donald Trump and, Paul Ryan, that they're going to do what they're told. That is Mark Meadows, the head of the House Freedom Caucus, is on the horn with Trump constantly. They're close. So I knew that was going to happen. But in the Senate, it is a little different, and we've seen that's where everything is hung up so far, right? I mean, we had they did have that brief little hiccup in the House where Ryan couldn't pass the Obamacare repeal, and then he came back and got it done. So he learned his lesson. He figured out how to do it. But in the Senate, they got hung up. They couldn't do it. Everything's been very dramatic. It's all about trying to wrangle just a couple of recalcitrant Republicans over process, or in some cases over substance. But whatever. That's been the game we've seen, and we're back there again. And we had one case, the Obamacare case, where they failed. And then we had the tax cuts where they succeeded. Now, we'll see what happens here. And of course, they have to get 60. I mean, I think if they get over 50, the Democrats will. I think they'll filibuster. I mean, maybe not, but I can't see it going without a filibuster. And somebody will, right? I mean,
it's hard to imagine that 9 Democrats are going to who are going to would join the Republicans. And I guess the only argument is it's only a 30-day continuing resolution. Like, we'll be back here again in February 16th or whatever it is. We're going to be back here again for the exact same fight. Now, we should also say that there's, almost 900,000 people will be impacted by this directly in the event that there's a government shutdown. I mean, you have a lot of government workers who, they'll keep essential workers on. That's like air traffic controllers and, Forest Service fighters, and I guess, I don't know, food
and
safety.
The military.
And military and, so like essential services. But you'll have almost 900,000 federal workers who will be furloughed and probably never get that pay back, right? I mean, this is what the Republicans are going to do. They're not going to fund these people in retrospect. And so you're going to see there's going to be foreclosures. There's going to be people who are, who are going to deal with some real deprivation. And that's a hard thing to be, I think, aware of and vote, against this funding bill, frankly.
Well, it is hard, and that's one reason why it was important that Senators Tim Kaine and Mark Warner of Virginia, which is where I think that there's a majority. Well, I don't know if it's a majority, a large
plurality, probably at least.
Yeah, a large number of them are federal workers, and when they came out and said they wouldn't vote for it, that was meaningful because that's usually been a place where that gets hung up, and for the reasons you're talking about. I mean, this is real people, their constituents that they are having to, go to and say, hey, look, we had to do this because, there was a bigger principle at stake here, and we had to take a stand in this moment. And the fact that they did it, neither Kaine or Warner are, hardcore lefties. I mean, they're both pretty, sort of mainstream, middle of the road types. For them to do that and to come out, I think that meant something. That was like saying, look, we're going to prepare to have to go defend this to a constituency that's going to be personally affected if this government shuts down, and we're prepared to do that. And that does take some guts. So I think that did mean something. I mean, and of course, we're all looking at people like John Tester, Claire McCaskill, Heidi Heitkamp, Joe Donnelly. These are all red state Democrats who are up for re-election this year. And they are in places that Donald Trump won. So that's the group that is being pressured, needless to say, to go along with this. And so far, so far we have not seen them, come out and say, and hedge much on this, and that's been true throughout the year. Democrats have hung in. And by the way,
just to extend that point, there was also, I was very surprised not to see a Virginia Democrat on that list in the House, because surely there's a district or two there where a significant portion of their constituents are working for the government or are going to be furloughed. And I was really surprised by that as well.
It's, look, I mean, I think we're all surprised to see Democrats actually, hanging together.
Yeah, exactly.
And sort of taking a principled stand, and using their collective power to make this strong statement. I mean, this is just not something we're used to seeing. It's not the opposition party that the Democrats used to be. I mean, the worst thing about having a Democratic opposition was the fact that only half of them were ever actually the opposition.
Right.
And that's it. That, in this Trump era and this era of polarization, that so far has not been true. And how tempting it must be for a lot of these people to go. It's the easier route, and you can get a lot of kudos and high fives from conservatives if you do that. They're very happy to welcome any Democratic apostate into their crowd. So, this has been a very interesting thing to watch, and so far so good in the Senate. And I understand the pressures that they're under, but this, there's something about this issue, I really think, that has got Democrats look, they made a good faith effort to do a compromise. They really did. They tried very hard. Going back to September when Nancy and Chuck had their meeting with Trump, and they came away believing that they had a deal.
Right.
That fell apart. Then more recently, this deal with Durbin and Trump and the Republicans treating Dick Durbin, who I think is highly respected in the Democratic caucus. It was very insulting what he said and did, and what they all did. Tom Cotton coming out and saying Dick Durbin's a liar. This did not go down well. And how the Senate apparently is this club. These people are very much believe that they operate on a higher level. I
Right.
mean, whether they do or not. But I think that was offensive to them on a personal level, and on a substance level, they were prepared to give up some pretty important, principles to try and get this deal done for DACA. I mean, getting rid of this family reunification, or even, kind of whittling it away, is very important. I mean, this is something Democrats believe in. I believe in it. I mean, family reunification is an important principle for American immigration, and they want to end it. And, the Democrats were willing to do that. They were willing to talk about the wall. They were willing to do a lot of things, and they just keep getting kicked in the teeth by Donald Trump and these hardcore right wingers. They don't have a lot of incentive, even the ones in the red states, to go along with this. I mean, there's everything has to be saying to them, look, the minute that I start capitulating to Donald Trump, my own support in the Democratic Party
Yep.
is going to completely, dissolve, because the Democratic base is active, energized, and they are angry. And the idea of Heidi Heitkamp suddenly going along with Tom Cotton, I just think, okay, Heidi, I hope you get every Republican
Right.
vote, because the Democrats aren't going to come out for you.
Well, this is what I've been saying through the ACA fight too. That and maybe the caucus has changed a little bit, and there are other sort of contextual reasons. But the bottom line is, the difference between Donald Trump and President Rubio is that Donald Trump actually disciplines the Democratic caucus more than any other Republican would. And because he's so toxic, so unpopular, and that Democrats just they don't care. Even in a state where he's popular, they know they can't get away with it. All right, well let's turn for a moment, and I guess we're going to find out, tonight, if it's going to pass in the Senate, and then if it doesn't, I guess we're into next week, and we'll see. I'm not convinced that Donald Trump and maybe Stephen Miller. I'm not convinced that they don't. I don't want to say but they may very well be welcoming a government shutdown. It seems to me. It doesn't mean necessarily that it's going to benefit them, but I mean, why not if you're Trump? It's like, why not?
He said it. He said it twice. He said, maybe we need a good government shutdown. Maybe that's what we need. And he's an effing moron. We know that. He doesn't understand the ramifications of this politically or substantively. But I think sure. And I think Stephen Miller's happy to have this fight over DACA. I mean, he really wants to deport all those kids.
Right.
He wants to. So, I think you're right. I think there's at least some portion of to the extent there's a strategy, and in Trump's case, I doubt there's much of one, but to the extent that they have any thoughts on this beyond the next 5 minutes, I think they welcome it. I think they're fine with it. But they're alone out there. I don't think most Republicans want this. This is not going to accrue to their benefit.
I agree with that. All right. Well, let's talk about something else that has accrued to someone else's benefit. Stormy, what's her last name? Stormy Daniels. Stormy Daniels. Now, so everybody knows this story, I believe, and there's more coming out, but Stormy Daniels is an adult film actress, and supposedly, I guess it was back in 2006? 2006? She allegedly had an ongoing affair with Donald Trump, which I know is sort of just gross to even have to articulate. But and the idea being, supposedly the reason why they're so worried about this being such a bombshell is that because Donald Trump was married at the time, and this is an illicit affair. And
how dare he? I am shocked.
Yeah, I'm shocked too. Like, she must be the only one he ever had an affair with. Maybe it was true love, and they were so compelled. But nevertheless, what has come out is that there was an interview that she gave back in 2011 before she signed an NDA, which apparently was signed in the waning weeks of the 2016 election. This is also strange. In the waning weeks of the 2016 election, like literally with weeks to go, she was paid $130,000 through a Delaware-based LLC, which is you incorporate or you form an LLC. I'm not sure if it was an S corp or an LLC, but nevertheless, you do this in Delaware because it affords you a lot more anonymity than doing it in some other state. Now, apparently, Trump's lawyer Cohen, not that bright, could have had a representative, didn't want to. So there's obviously pretty easy to trace it to him. But there's a couple of questions here. And I pose them to you, Digby. A, where did the money come from? B, what is it that she's getting paid for? Like, there's a 2011 interview out there detailing the fact that they had an affair. And so, I mean, presumably somebody knew this. This could have been dug up. What is it that she's actually being paid to keep quiet is a question. And here's another question for you. I'm sitting here and I'm looking at a list of what you've written the past week on Salon. And as I'm scrolling through, you know, there's the who gave the money to the NRA to help Trump. We can talk about that because the NRA spent an enormous amount of money for them in this race, in a race that everybody presumed that Donald Trump was losing. And that's how you have to wonder, like, where did they get that money that they're willing to expend? But the next thing is sloppy Steve Bannon, now Trump's biggest problem. And it occurs to me, where did this story come from? And now that Steve Bannon is out in the outside, like, where did this story come from? So,
well, you know,
are we looking at
Stormy?
Steve? Yeah, are we looking at Steve Bannon? I mean, is Steve Bannon doing this Stormy thing?
Well, you know, I don't know. It's very interesting. I mean, the story broke in a Murdoch paper, right? I mean, it was in the Wall Street Journal. It was those reporters in the Wall Street Journal who dug up this news, these facts that showed that Trump's lawyer Michael Cohen had paid off Stormy Daniels in the days before the election in 2016. And then they dug up these details that you just outlined about the incorporating in Delaware, and he incorporated 2 different companies, and then only ended up using one, and nobody really understands why, et cetera, et cetera. Very interesting. Now, you posed a question why he didn't find someone else, you know, some kind of a cutout to do this, which would have made this very, you know, very hard to trace who it was. My personal belief is because he didn't trust anybody. There was nobody they could trust with this information, which indicates to me that that what is being covered up and what the other question you posed. Why would they do this? I mean, it was already out in the election, you know, during the cycle that he had treated women like pigs, and that he walked into the dressing rooms of the Miss USA pageant, and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, this was not a porn star coming forward at the end of the, you know, of the cycle. I don't know that
And saying I had an affair with Donald Trump.
I had an affair with Donald Trump 10 years ago. It's like everybody would have gone, yeah, well, what else is new, right? I mean, it just seems to me like that wouldn't have been something that would have required them to go to great lengths to try and cover that particular thing up when everything else that was out there was already out there, right?
Right.
So apparently a lot of news organizations had been working on this. They had, Fox News had the story, Slate had the story, there were a number of them who were out there, and obviously the Wall Street Journal. And they didn't go with it because she ended up not, she signed this non-disclosure agreement, took the money, we now know, and that was the end of that. But, you know, as you point out, this story was already out there. In Touch had written about it in 2011. And, you know, there was actually more to the story, which we've just found out last night, that Stormy Daniels had been she's from Louisiana, and she had, remember the David Vitter story, you know, where he got caught by the D.C. madam, and we used to call him Diaper Dave, right? You know, he had been using, and he was a, you know, nice right-wing Christian boy who'd been, you know, wearing diapers and had been, you know, this was his kink. And all of that was revealed. He was a senator from Louisiana. He's now a lobbyist, of course. Stormy Daniels decided she was going to run against him in Louisiana back then in 2006, and she started talking to a bunch of political people in Louisiana. She was pretty serious. She did a listening tour. She was going to be in politics, and in the course of that, she told other people about Donald Trump and the affair that they had, and gave some details about that affair that show that Donald Trump, he may not have been wearing diapers, but he was a little more kinky than anybody knew. In fact, she told one story that he liked to be spanked, and that he wanted her to spank him with a copy of Forbes magazine that had his picture and pictures of his kids on the front.
Ooh.
And people went back and looked, and there was such a Forbes magazine that exists right in the time period.
We're looking at it right now. Not presumably the actual magazine that spanked his ass, but a facsimile of the cover.
Can I take a moment to gloat about how close I was yesterday in my guess? Like
Jamie had him pegged as
isn't that far off
spanky guy.
from
Yeah. A lot
adult
of those rich
baby
guys.
incest play. So we'll see what else
Oh,
comes
well.
out.
Yeah, who knows what he needs to, to get him excited. He did tell Stormy Daniels that, she reminded him of his daughter.
Yes.
That was in the In Touch interview.
That's not
In any case, setting aside, I can't help but
relationship that
enjoy.
you have with a woman. You always look to have a relationship with a woman who reminds you of your daughter. That's classic.
That's so normal. Well, you can't help but enjoy all this just on the purely, kind of sick and twisted side of another sick and twisted side of Donald Trump. But there's a bigger issue here, and I think it's really what makes this story something that goes beyond just, our own prurient interest. And that is the fact that Donald Trump has been, accused of potentially having been compromised by the Russian government. And that was in the Steele dossier. That was the big salacious detail about that he had been filmed with prostitutes when he was there in 2013 for the Miss Universe pageant.
Right.
And that's been the detail that he has denied most vociferously, right? I mean, he has been absolutely, I would never do it. And he said he wouldn't do that because he's a germaphobe. And everybody knows that a germaphobe would never do, some kind of humiliating, degrading, dirty thing like what is alleged in the Steele dossier. Well, what this story about Stormy Daniels does reveal, and there seems to be so much evidence that it actually happened that I'm going to go ahead and say it happened, is that Donald Trump was having sex with an adult film actress, and according to Stormy Daniels in the In Touch interview, he did not use protection. And that indicates to me that his excuse about being a germaphobe doesn't hold water, that at least when it comes to sex, Trump is not someone who is adverse to, exposing himself to germs. Let's put it that way. Stormy Daniels is she performed in pornography and had many partners. So, and now we find out through this other story that's gotten out about her Louisiana Senate run that he had some kinky habits. This means that, I had never thought before that much about the Golden Showers story. I didn't care. But
I thought about it a lot.
Here we have Trump paying off a porno actress a week before the election, and now we know that he is one who was, involved in some sexual escapades that were we're kinky. So, just lends credence to that story that wasn't there before.
I don't want to be a killjoy, but I just want to remind folks that the testing standards for people in the adult film community are actually quite high.
Oh, without a doubt. But
they are.
But a germaphobe, regardless of whether, a germaphobe, you would imagine would not be would have some reluctance to
absolutely. This is the guy who says he can only eat fish fillets because he knows that he won't be poisoned. Fillet of fish from McDonald's because he won't be poisoned. That's his excuse anyway. No, of course. Stormy Daniels, I'm sure she's perfectly healthy. It's just that someone like Trump, if he is this kind of germaphobe that he purports to be, that would be, in my view, that would be something he'd be concerned about.
I used to go over a lot of the health reports, and so I was fully aware of the fact that in that industry that folks get checked out. So, but when did? He wasn't necessarily trying to hide anything because it would undercut a defense about the Steele dossier, because that hadn't come out really, had it? Had that come out? The Pete stuff had not come out prior to the election.
It had not come out, but he knew about it. They had. Remember, James Comey came and pulled him aside and told him, and they knew about it.
No, but that didn't happen until after he was elected. Comey didn't go to him until after he was elected. So, to pay off Stormy Daniels beforehand was not I can't get it out there that I'm not actually a germaphobe. It is there had to be whatever it was that she was going to tell had to be, important enough for him to drop that type of cash if it was his. In that last week or two, I'm surprised by that. I'm just surprised that, I don't know. There's something about it that just doesn't track, and I just don't know what it is. But, they all thought that he wasn't going to win. Maybe they thought like I got to pay another $120,000 to maintain within a 6-point difference, or that somehow I just can't. There's something in there that just doesn't track, and that's what I'm finding so confusing about it. And I also, again, I wonder. Is this the only if they're in the habit of paying $130,000 to a adult film actress so that she doesn't talk? I mean, are we to believe that they didn't pay anybody else? And if
Bannon said they paid 100 women.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is that I keep coming back to look. Steve Bannon would have known about this, right? I mean, he is running the campaign at that point. He would have known about this. This would have been something that would have been not just brought to Trump, because Trump would have been like, whatever. He would have known about this. And the fact that he's on the outside and all of a sudden we know about this story, right, as opposed to some other story, just leads me to believe that there's something here that I don't know. Maybe I'm just a little bit too conspiratorial minded these days. But I just think that, look, the idea that Steve Bannon is not out there now every day, every waking moment, thinking about what he can do to screw over these people is hard for me to imagine.
You know it.
Right? I mean, of course.
You know it.
And
I mean, I wrote that in the piece that I wrote about Sloppy Steve. He had this strange session with the House Intelligence Committee this week in which he allegedly claimed executive privilege, and then the White House says, no, we never told him that. We just told him to, be discreet, and it went back and forth. It's very complicated. But in the course of this thing where Bannon's in there for 10 hours and he's refusing to talk and he had to subpoena him and all that, he let slip one little thing. And oops, the one little thing that he let slip was that he'd had a conversation with Spicer Priebus and Mark Carollo, who ended up quitting over the cover-up. He was the legal spokesman. That he had a conversation with them about the Trump Tower meeting. Oops. It's like one of those things where I said this in my piece for Salon, I'm going, what's the likelihood that he would, by mistake, drop a hint that he knows things about the central issue involved in the campaign committing collusion with the Russian government? Just that one little thing is the only thing. Oops, gosh, did I say that? So yeah, I think you're right. I think that Bannon may the whole tone of my piece was about, I'm going, why would you, here you have a guy who knows everything. You insult, and you find out that he's been loose-lipped with Michael Wolff. Instead of just saying, oh, the book is fiction, Steve Bannon didn't say that stuff, or whatever, or that's crazy Steve, he says crazy stuff all the time, and just let it go. Instead, calling him, saying he's lost his mind, and then getting him fired and losing his place in the movement that he helped create. A man with a lot of ammunition and nothing to lose is a very dangerous man.
Right, and that to me sounds like him signaling to them. I think you and I spoke about this on Ring of Fire. I think Bannon knows, like, hey, man, I'm not going in and telling that congressional committee anything because I know how much it gets back to the White House. I'll just wait until I get to Mueller so that nobody in the White House knows what I'm willing to say to Mueller. And on top of that, like, it's quite possible that this whole Stormy Daniels thing is also him basically signaling, like, hey, guys, don't forget, I know where all the bodies are buried. And,
That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that, but it sure does make sense, doesn't it? Why now?
Why now? Why are we finding out about this now? Who's tipping off the Wall Street Journal? Like there was 10,000 LLCs filed that day in Delaware. Wow. And you don't just randomly come across these LLCs unless somebody has told you to look there. So somebody's telling them. right? They have a source on this. This is not, we just did some, just dug this up like, hey, maybe there was an LLC in Delaware filed, weeks before the election to keep somebody who had already done an interview, from talking. Like, they got a tip. And it's just, right now, you got to bet, like, if somebody had that tip, why wait a year to tell them about it, right? I mean, so I get the feeling that that's coming from Bannon. And, and there's a reason why, that there's information there that they're probably sweating a little bit in the White House right now. And it's not just that, I don't think Melania is like, oh my God, Donald hasn't been faithful to me. Now maybe, I don't want to be a cynic, folks, but, and I would be equally surprised if she cared, frankly.
Yeah, me too. I was just going to say the same thing.
But who knows? But all right, interesting week, Digby, and there is more than just the salacious aspects of that Stormy Daniels. I have a feeling.
Absolutely.
One wonders, she was hanging out with him for a while. One wonders what maybe she actually saw. It's like maybe the sex was just a pretext to keep her to be quiet.
Yeah. Who knows? But there's something there. A lot of it just doesn't really track.
That's right.
And you're absolutely right. And, there's Steve Bannon sitting out there going, yeah, go ahead, call me crazy.
Exactly. Heather, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for your time today.
Thanks for having me. Enjoy your weekend.
I will do my best. Digby, ladies and gentlemen, Digby. All right, now listen, we're going to take a quick break. Oh, should we play the Jimmy Reefer Cake song? Yeah, let's do that. And then, I'm going to call Judy. Right, okay. It's a minute 12. Okay. Yeah, we'll play it after Judy, because I'm a little bit late for Judy. So we'll just take a quick break, and then when we come back, Judy Gold. We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report. Don't forget, folks, Jamie is running a DSA party this weekend. Where is it, Jamie?
It's at Transpecos, which is kind of on the borderline between Bushwick and Ridgewood off the Halsey stop on the L train. Very easy to get to.
Is there a website that people can check out?
Yes. There is a Facebook event you could search for. It's public. It's called Now is the Winter of Our Discotheque, which I wish I could take credit for, but I can't.
There you go.
We've got some real music people DJing.
All right. Well, we'll talk a little bit more about it. I just wanted to make sure that we got it out there now. We'll talk a little more after Judy.
All right.
All right. And speaking of which, our next guest has her own theme song. I don't know if she knows this.
Level-headed.
Fuck you!
Calm, cool, and collected.
I have a bigger penis than him.
Judy Gold is on the line to keep us all connected.
What the fuck is the matter with him?
A steady hand to guide us. She'll keep us calm and carry on.
No fucking way!
Too bad Jimmy Reefer Cook didn't find her worthy of a song. Well, Judy Gold.
And he's such a fucking penis head liar. I'm not kidding.
Yes, Judy Gold.
Oh my God, I can't believe I have children. I mean, how embarrassing is that?
Oh my God, are you
Listen.
kidding? It's fantastic.
First of all, whatever thing that's happening in Bushwick this weekend, if you think the L train is even going to be working, you're, full
Word.
of shit. Okay?
Normal service. It's normal service.
What?
Everyone says
Yeah.
we have the best service.
Yeah, quote unquote.
The L train's great.
Judy,
Listen,
how are you? What do you?
I'm really, first of all, that he's talking to a bunch of anti-abortionists about family, prayer. I mean, how many fucking abortions has he paid for? How many?
Donald Trump, I would imagine, quite a few.
I think that's giving him so much credit.
I can't believe that this guy, like the Stormy Daniels, the Goodwill Humping, like nothing. And there's women who are sitting there, oh yeah, he says he's politically incorrect. It's like, what is wrong with you? Seriously, what is wrong with you? That if your husband said that, you'd be like, get the fuck out of the house. But your president, what if your kid acted like that? You punish the kid. It's not. And they sit there with their, and now he's just politically, and I just love he says what he thinks. And we all think it. No, we don't, asshole. We don't all think it. Okay? I feel like I have to go around the Upper West Side and apologize to every Haitian in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Can't take it. So embarrassing.
We have a clip of him just speaking about abortion. Let's play some of this.
As you all know, Roe versus Wade has resulted in some of the most permissive abortion laws anywhere in the world. For example, in the United States, it's one of only 7 countries to allow elective late-term abortions, along with China, North Korea, and others. Right now, in a number of states, the laws allow a baby to be born from his or her mother's womb in the 9th month. It is wrong.
What?
It has to change. Americans are more and more pro-life.
Wait. Will you go back? Did he just say the laws are such now that a baby is allowed to be born from his mother's womb?
The laws are what we were working on.
Is that what he just said?
There was a directive. You got
China,
a year.
North Korea, and others.
Listen.
Right now, in a number of states, the laws allow a baby to be born from his or her mother's womb in the 9th month. It is wrong.
Yeah.
My understanding is that is actually the law in every state in the country, that you're allowed to be born from your mother's womb.
That has been going on for a really long time.
even in North Korea.
Like, I think that, actually, I got to talk to my kids, but I'm pretty sure that they were in there for 9 months.
He's so
That's interesting.
He is, even he, I think, is like, I can't believe these things are coming out of my mouth, to the point where I'm actually going to say the law is that you're allowed to be born from your womb.
Like, I don't think the legality of it made a difference to him.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I think he's so
antithesis to him.
I think he's so. I think he's literally flummoxed by the fact that he's actually up there saying.
But I'm saying, like, even if it was illegal, he would still, if we're accepting the premise that he paid for abortions, he would get them done anyways. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't care.
Why didn't his mother have an abortion? Why?
Because she did a great job.
Well, for all we know, that maybe she did. She had a bunch after him.
Right. I would. I'd be like, I can't have another one of this crap coming out of me.
Have you seen a picture of his mother, Judy?
What?
Have you seen a picture of her?
Oh, the hair is just
big
very
resemblance
attractive.
there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Let me tell you something.
Yeah.
These anti-quote abortionists, do they think that people who are pro-choice get up and are like, you know what? I have no plans today. I think I'll get an abortion. Like, what do they think goes on? If you are against abortion and then don't have a fucking abortion. Don't have one, okay? But don't tell another person what to do. Don't with their body. It's like, it's so... oh my God. It was already settled. The thing has been settled. Move on. .org.
Yeah, I mean, it's impressively craven, I think, how, the leadership of the Republican Party pretends that they care about this. And the interesting thing is going to be when do we start to see the Supreme Court attack this full on? I think we're just one justice away. And
we are.
And Anthony,
look at him. He's just. Oh, I hate him. Sorry, I had the TV on.
No, what else you been up to this week?
Hey, Stormy, what are you doing today? You want an abortion?
Well, okay, so my brother was visiting, and we can't. He's like, "What are you so? You get so worked up about like?" There are people who are just like, okay, whatever. And it's like, I am so incensed. And, my mother used to always say, Judith, why are you getting your blood pressure up so much? It's unbelievable. It is unbelievable what is going on in this country. And that Paul Ryan is the Democrats. But you're such a fucking weeble fucking, I hate you. And Mitch McConnell, seriously. Like, these people are, and Pence is in love with Trump. Do you see the way he looks at him?
Yes,
he just stares at him like, oh my God. Oh, I just want to have anal with you. You're going to be out soon and I'm going to be president. It's, who are these people? Who are they?
It's been, there's a relentlessness.
Mike's obsessed with me. He wants anal with me. He wants prayer with me.
He wants me thrown out. It's just overwhelming. He wants me thrown in. He doesn't even know what he wants. It's all over the place.
He wants to be dominated. He wants to dominate. I can't get straight with him. No pun intended.
If there is, in fact, a government shutdown, it's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out because, I was watching. I watched a clip of Jimmy Kimmel. Do a sketch. That with
the horse shit.
Yes, he did a sketch. Actually, we should almost play this, I think. But he did a sketch where he was explaining the government shutdown. And
it was good. It was really
good, and it was a good metaphor. But more importantly, it's like, wow, to see the effort that is being put in by sort of cultural figures to explain a government shutdown before it happens. To see, that to me is that could have a serious impact on the ability of the Democrats to sort of stay strong in the face of a shutdown, and Schumer's up on heading to the White House right now.
I know. And then asshole who wants to go to Mar-a-Lago for his $250,000 a plate or whatever it is, $100,000 a plate, dinner, whatever. He'll be like, I didn't go, and I brought Schumer in, and I saved the day. It's the bullshit that is put on in our newspapers and on television, and that people fucking believe this shit. Did you read the New York Times yesterday?
With what?
The op-ed.
Oh, yes.
They said, we're going to devote our op-ed page to Trump support. No! I've heard enough fucking Trump supporters.
Vision, chutzpah, and some testosterone was what some of the readers said about Donald Trump.
Oh, speaking of the New York Times, can I just give a negative shout out to them for this headline about the discriminatory bills that are going to allow people to basically let trans people die if they want to? Trump gives health workers new religious liberty protections.
Right.
That's the headline in the New York Times.
Right. You know, this is what's wrong with us lefty, liberal, bleeding heart Democrats. This is what's wrong. Oh, please love us. Oh, we don't want to hurt your feelings. We're done with that shit. It's got to stop. It's got to stop. We have to stop like, oh, I don't want to offend you. Fuck offending them. Look at the shit they say. I'm done.
By those standards, Mike's a liberal Democrat. He's always asking to be loved.
Well, listen to one of the people who wrote in. It's from this guy Philip Mayman from Greenwich, Connecticut.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I read that. Yeah, go ahead.
To the editor, I've voted twice in my life. Once for myself when I ran for Congress 10 years ago, and once for Donald Trump last year.
Once! He's voted twice in his fucking life!
Virtually, and here we go.
It's going to be laminated in the White House.
But this is it, right? It's all stories of aggrievement. Virtually all of my friends or colleagues actively hate Mr. Trump. I'm a minority in every circle I move in. Says this white guy from Greenwich, Connecticut. I'm a minority in every circle I move in. Oh, boy.
Yeah.
I have a PhD from the University of Chicago and a bachelor's and master's degree from Harvard. I'm a former hedge fund trader and now academic. I'm a journalist and author, and he's a minority in every circle he runs in.
So hard for him. It's so hard for him.
Imagine being a Trump supporter in even one of those circles.
He's a professor of analytics and finance.
Can you imagine the horror of being a Trump supporter in a hedge fund trader circle?
Yeah, well, get out of your bubble for a second. Imagine this guy wants to make a fun fag joke. People wouldn't laugh.
Okay.
We learned to stay quiet.
Here's what I want to say.
Here, let me. How's he doing? I want to continue to read this. How he's doing? He has turned a fragile nation, quote unquote, anti-fragile. Before Mr. Trump, we were scared of any volatility. Oh no, ISIS. Oh no, banks. The more chaos there was, the worse we were. Now, volatility is our friend. The more chaos, the better. Entrepreneurship up. Optimism up. Good old American problem solving is back. You know who loves change? Capitalists. Mr. Trump has led us on that spiritual exodus. I mean, I don't even know how to respond to this.
You know what he does? I'll tell you what he does. He jerks off to a poster of himself when he ran for Congress 10 years ago. That's what he does. Okay?
I was the best.
You know what really burns my ass about these letters is that they can have these Republican points of view for balance, but they can include any kind of significant representation of anti-war voices or social democrat, even people who voted for Bernie in the primary. Like, where are we?
Or families that were ripped apart this week.
Sorry. If you look at the last one, Alexander Goldstein, one of my people.
I still don't like you,
Alexander. Before I respond to your questions, I have a question of my own. Did you run similar surveys for Obama voters? Or for that matter, Eisenhower voters? Trump voters are not circus freaks to be displayed or singled out.
Well,
yes,
yeah, you are.
I mean, there's not a decent bone in his body. It's unbelievable. It's like this woman from Austin. What I like least about his presidency so far is the tweeting. It's often immature and lowers the tone of the debate while debasing the office of the presidency. That said, I think the media needs to be a lot more even-handed in its coverage of him and keep its personal opinions in check. Really?
Sometimes the tweeting interferes.
All you have to do is fucking show him talking. That's all you need. What personal opinion? It's common decency. Oh, sorry.
Sometimes the tweeting interferes with me ripping apart El Salvadoran and Haitian families. So
Yeah,
it's a fair
I get
point.
it. It's true. I get it.
How? Did you see Judge Janine Pirro, how she opened last night at their Mar-a-Lago or wherever they were?
Oh God,
I'm sure
no.
it was good.
She wrote, she was really good. And she wrote, well, she apparently, I'm paraphrasing, so don't, but she said, wow, well, this place is certainly not a shithole.
Judge Janine. Wow.
That was good. So funny.
Hey,
She's
Janine,
funny.
would you like me to have intercourse in you for about 10 seconds?
About the fat fuck Chris Christie?
I was just going to bring that up. I was just going to bring that up. The two-term Republican who left office on January 16th was blocked from a VIP entrance he had used for 8 years at, this is at Newark Liberty International Airport, and directed to stand in TSA screening lines at Terminal B like anyone else. This is according to a person familiar with the incident.
Fucking piece of shit. Sorry.
No, this is such a great story.
Oh my God, look at his face.
I mean,
He looks so ashen and upset when he realizes he cannot go into that. Oh, is that? We don't know if that's actually from there. I would hope so, but I don't think it is. Yeah, I would have paid thousands of dollars just to watch them go like, sorry, sir, you're not the governor anymore.
You know what? That's the highlight part, but I want to watch the part where he takes his shoes off.
That's right.
I want him to have a
How can he
rematch.
get down? How can he do it?
Remember that video where that guy was like, "Hey, you fucking suck," and he's like, "Are you the governor? I'm the fucking governor." I want that guy to come back.
I know. What about when he screamed at the teacher? Like, oh God! I want. Why can't I be there when this shit happens?
I honestly.
How great would that have been?
I wonder if we could actually just sort of like write to his office now or whatever and say, can we just get an advance notice the next time you're having to do anything?
When next time he's traveling out of Newark.
Next time you're traveling, falling off of a chair at a radio station, speaking. Next time you're at a baseball game. That was where that happened. That was the baseball game.
I wish there were people
Right.
who were actually paid to just sort of like chase him around for the next just 3-4 months just to mock him.
Yeah.
That's actually a good
Right.
idea.
And just to
I think we
yeah.
can come across partisan boundaries to do that together. I mean, that's the thing about Trump. You got to give Trump credit. Nobody's humiliated Chris Christie more than Donald Trump.
Well,
there's a lot of scumbag on scumbag violence in this time.
That's right. Christie humiliated himself quite a bit, but I love the idea that he's specifically not a VIP anymore.
What about when he went on the beach? Like, if you look like him, would you say, you know what? I don't care how many pictures they take of me sitting here on the beach. Like, it's like they're so unaware of how they present themselves to the world. Like, they're just clueless. It's like, you're a fat, disgusting bully, liar.
The biggest problem is that he's ugly on the inside, and
Yes,
Right.
and it's
No, wrong. Judy's right. The biggest problem is that he's an enormous blimp on the outside. I don't care about
Right,
the.
but talking about, and he's talking about addiction. He's going to talk about addiction. You are addicted to food, you fuck. You're addicted to food. Talk about that.
That picture on the beach is not about on the inside. That's pure outside.
But I just feel like, well, I mean, aside from my not wanting to engage in a fat shaming, I would say that it's not hard for me to find plenty of examples of people who are that heavy, who I look at, who I don't find like even the repulsiveness I feel when I see
made the country
Chris Christie
resilient, but not the majority report.
because of
Right,
what is inside that guy.
True repulsiveness comes from within, just like true beauty.
That's the thing, is that I am not I don't believe in body shaming except for him and Sarah Huckabee Sanders and Donald
Yeah,
Trump.
of
So,
course.
but
Of course.
because they're evil, it's like, look, I'm overweight. I'm 6'2". I've struggled with weight, but and you know, but I'm a good person. You know, I'm not an asshole. It's like, look at you. You take up too much space in my head and in physically. You know, you're just like, who are you? Like, I don't know. It's like Harvey Weinstein. It's fat, pockmarked, ugly, and he thinks in his head, "Oh, I'm gonna fuck that hot actress." Like, where does that come from? A woman has a wrinkle or a blemish and is like, "Oh, I can't go out. And these fat fucks are walking around like they're the most powerful people in the universe.
And Sarah Huckabee Sanders going, "I'm lying at you with both eyes." Okay.
I know.
mean, it works.
They're just, I don't know.
Roxanne Gay has a tweet up that
I love her last name.
It's controversial, but
that Matt has just thrown up. And
she
it says,
lost patience in the same way.
Stop asking me to chastise people for body shaming Donald Trump. For one, I am not a vending machine or the soul police. But also, it's not good to body shame anyone, not even the worst person in the world. But you are not better or closer to God for going out of your way to defend Trump's body. Fuck him. He's a racist, ignorant asshole.
Yes.
He's deporting Americans, raising your taxes, taking your health care, and ruining us internationally. He's literally the worst. Save your righteousness and fight for everyone who is slightly less terrible or actually deserving. And he doesn't weigh 239 pounds. It's okay to point that out. Everyone lies about their weight, for fuck's sake.
I also just thinking, especially...
Yeah, but the doctor lied about his weight, and he's the guy who judges women by the way they look. So who the fuck are you?
Yeah, but two wrongs don't make a right. Like, I worry that when we fat shame Trump, we are also fat shaming people who are not involved in any way, shape, or form with Trump.
But two wrongs don't necessarily make anything more than two wrongs either.
Two
they
wrongs
may not
make
a
fun.
right. They may not make a right, but, you know.
Two wrongs make fun. I also think that in Trump's case specifically, like, I mean, it's not just a question of his... I mean, he literally looks grotesque. And that is absolutely a reflection of who he is in a very distinct way that you can't cut from his physicality. I mean, you can't.
I mean, if he looked like Mitt Romney, he'd be just as terrible.
But he's also he would. But he's also like Mike Pence is disgusting and horrible. But he is someone who brings up the way people look constantly. Marco Rubio's hands, Carly Fiorina's face. Like he brings this shit up.
Well, she had that coming. I mean, Rubio, I felt bad about the hands, but Carly, no.
No, Rubio triggered him because Rubio's younger. Did you ever watch that clip where Trump, I think he was with some idiots on MSNBC, and he literally said, he's like, I think I look better than Rubio. I think a lot of people would agree. Do you agree?
Oh, God. I don't know. I just don't. How much more of this?
How much more?
How much more of this?
23.
How much
3
more?
years.
You know.
I mean, the it's going to be 3 years. However, it's possible that, you know, after 2018, he's going to be a much different person, right? He's just not. He's going to feel like under a lot more pressure, it seems to me. Very possibly, which, you know, might be cathartic.
It will be amazing to watch him have a heart attack and deny it's happening in real time. That will be awesome.
Like you don't, you know, I mean, I would prefer if he just went away tomorrow, we never saw him again. But if he's going to be here, I wouldn't mind like a 2-year-long sort of torturous exit for him. I think that would be important and cathartic for the country. Maybe, you know, they could pass a law that he has to be in the stockades for the first hour every day. And, you know, like on the steps of the Capitol or
Bernie's
something.
America, baby.
There you go.
I love it.
Now, Judy, I know you have you're working on a deadline, But I want to
Yeah.
remind everybody that on the 30th, Donald Trump is
Yeah.
going to give his State of the Union. And I mean, I can already guess that the State of the Union is going to be great and better than it's ever been, maybe.
Oh, it's tremendous. It's going to be tremendous.
And we are hoping that you, Judy Gold, will come in studio not only to give us running commentary during the State of the Union.
Oh, my God.
But to provide a rebuttal to the State of the Union, because I don't.
So good. The Democrats, 2018. Fuck you!
When liberals stop
I'm
being
in,
polite
but-
and start getting real.
I would never watch this otherwise.
I am so in, and you better play my theme song.
Oh, yes. And we have actually multiple theme songs. We have 2 theme songs for you.
Oh, my God, I can't wait.
We'll do both theme songs. We'll do like the instead of that, we'll do your theme song.
I both can like really
right.
wait and can't wait. Like I can't wait for
What
Judy.
do you
I can
want?
wait for this.
We're going to talk. Like, what do you want for a background? Because we're going to try and do this right, so that you have like.
Oh, that's a good idea.
So you got to
A
tell me.
background.
Think about like if you want to look like
Trump
you're
playing tennis?
in a some type of like library, or if you want whatever it is that you want, we're going to try and come up
Yes,
with one.
as sophisticated as possible, so that when I use my colorful language, it really hits home.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Fair enough. Maybe we'll.
And I think that you guys should sit behind me, like you know, and just nod and stare at me.
I think we need like
you know.
have really serious like poker faces. Like
We
we're
gotta
like
figure
we're
out
you know
how
what
to
we
do
should
that.
think
like
of,
the majority leader,
Yes.
and the vice president,
or like Parliament in the UK. Like we're sitting on the front bench as the
We got to
leader
figure out how to
responds.
do that.
Yeah,
All
I'm
right.
down.
Well, Judy.
By the way, I want you to know that video that you posted, that you're one of the first people who posted the video of the guy from Mexico having to go, who was here for 30 years.
Right.
That was heart-wrenching.
Horrible.
Heart-wrenching. Having to watch him say goodbye to his family because of this fucking disgusting. I mean, it's so, this is not the country we live in. I just don't understand it.
It's really bad. It's really scary because it's the idea of that we're sending a guy to Mexico who's been here for 30 years, who has a family
Since he's 9 years old.
And since he's 9 years old, and this is a fate that could happen to literally hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of DACA folk, and then of course there's a whole nother. I mean, there's many more who are not DACA. This guy was not DACA, who have been here for this long and ripping apart families, and the idea that it doesn't provoke, I don't know, people chaining themselves up to whatever. It's scary. It's scary. And on one hand, I understand why it doesn't provoke that. People don't know about it. They don't know what to do about it. But there's marches. Don't forget, folks. There's marches all across the country tomorrow. Women's marches. Check your local listings.
Yeah, you better go march.
Yep. All right, Judy.
Okay. I'm marching with Stormy Daniels. All right.
Judy, always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
I love you guys, and I
love you
hate
back.
him. Okay.
Talk to you soon.
You can't really understand what a true piece of ass is until you have a daughter. And then through her, you learn what hotness really is. It's unbelievable. Isn't it unbelievable?
Very sweet sentiment.
There's a lot of misogynist sentiment that sex workers can't be free from STDs, but in porn, there's very rigorous testing. That's why I done
Very
protected.
clean.
Very clean. That's why I done protected sex with a girl that reminds me of my daughter.
I want to go to Jimmy Reefer Cake, but while we were talking with Judy, we mentioned that story of Jorge Garcia and his family. His wife is an American citizen. His 2 children are American citizens, one of whom I think is 12, the other I think maybe 15. He had been in this country for 30 years. He was brought here when he was 9 years old. Been in this country for 30 years. The View, I guess, I don't know, reunited the family via video. And here they are. Here is Jorge talking to the people on The View, and his wife is in studio. And let's just listen to this clip. I mean, it's just really heartbreaking.
So, you can see your dad.
Yeah.
Anything you want to say?
We love you. We miss you. We want to hug you. Stay strong.
Do you want to say anything to your dad?
I love you guys too.
So like.
It's okay, baby. Thank y'all for coming, because I think it's important for people to understand. This is not some random conversation that this is real people's lives. This is real people's lives. And if you want to help, elect the people who are going to make sure that this does not happen again. We'll be right.
I mean, good for them on The View.
I mean, things have been bad for immigrants in this country for a pretty long time. This isn't something new that Trump invented. But if these new levels of cravenness are going to wake up liberals to the realities of what needs to change, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this many times on the show. Barack Obama, deported a record number of people. But this is far worse.
It also,
I don't know. They had as a practice would have deported somebody who had been here for 30 years with 2 kids.
No, it's a significant escalation. I mean, it doesn't excuse the previous.
It doesn't. And I'm not even sure it's on the same necessarily continuum. I don't know. I mean, I'm not familiar enough with who the folks were that were sent back, but my sense is that in these type of instances were.
My understanding from people like Reagan is that this type of person was definitely not. And by the way, like not only not under Obama, like not under Bush,
right?
Not under Clinton,
right?
Well, and you also wonder how you call back the culture that's going to exist for the next 3 years under Trump, like that. Like ICE is just gonna it's already completely broken, should be disbanded, but like you let them run rampant for another 3 more years.
Right. It's not like they're developing some type of muscle memory, and putting the brakes on something like this is not going to be easy. It's going to take a tremendous amount of effort. All right, let's listen to Jimmy Reefer Cake's song. Now we're going to head into the fun half. But let me just tell you this. For those of you who are listening or watching live, we are anticipating a special guest on the program in about 50 minutes.
I'm running late, Rachel.
In about 50 minutes. And so what we'll do for our freebie listeners is we'll probably include this, or maybe we'll put out a special episode. I'm not sure what we'll do, but maybe we'll just cut the fun half out and include this interview, because it's the senator from Vermont who I'm not saying which one, not gonna say which one, but we're anticipating a phone call from.
A special episode or a very special episode?
Well, we'll see. We'll figure out something, folks. So we're going to take a break, and if we end up sticking on the back of this freebie show, then we will do that. But let's play Jimmy Reefer Cake before we go to the fun half.
One time for the ladies.
Marijuana on the Schedule 1 is absolutely absurd. Mandatory minimum sentence laws should be torn up and burned. Eric Holder wrote some memos that are now being overturned by Jefferson of Beauregard Sessions the Third. Oh, please don't be tweeting at me, acting like everything be great with Hillary. She never supported legalization, and as a result, Trump won over the nation. Now the deaf listen to me, better legalize weed, or you'll be the victim of your own hypocrisy. Don't you be like Jefferson Beauregard Sessions the Third, a man widely described and recognized as a human turd. He's a human turd. He's a human turd. He's a human turd. Oh, he's a human turd. Oh, Jeffrey Sessions. Oh, God. He's a human turd.
Pot's dangerous,
Wow.
kids. Careful with how you consume it. So wait, I like the argument there is interesting. So Hillary did not, I'm assuming he's not talking about the Republican base that voted for Trump. So the sort of like couple of the several hundred thousand voters in swing states who potentially flipped to Trump because they were scammed by his false populism. It was really a weed thing. If Hillary had come and said, Wisconsin, no jobs but weed.
I mean, I think
Maybe.
I think it's quite possible that a more full-throated support of pot would have brought out more voters.
Where though?
I don't know.
I doubt in Wisconsin.
I don't know.
I mean, she should have, because pot should be legal regardless. But I don't think it's the silver electoral bullet.
I mean, I think Democrats will be missing an opportunity if they don't make more of an issue of it this time around.
Yeah.
But we'll see, because in this instance, there's a very clear dichotomy that is just sitting there. Now, maybe some people might see it anyways, because no Clinton administration would be doing or attempting to do what the Trump administration is doing in terms of the states.
It's like I always say, smoke weed every day.
So, Jamie, before we go, more details on this DSA party, the winter of our discotheque.
Yes. So it is a fundraiser for the North Brooklyn DSA branch and all the exciting projects we have coming up. We just voted on 2 priorities, which are healthcare and housing, which I think a lot of our listeners care about. Oh yeah, we got a cute little flyer. We've got some real music people DJing, including Liz Pelly and Jeremy Larson from Pitchfork. My friend Frank Jones, Mr. Frank, is performing live, and he's a very good hype man, very sexy, very fun. And I will be DJing at the after party, which is just around the corner at Father Knows Best. So this is open to the public. And I hope everyone comes and has a super fun time. It's going to be lit. It's literally going to be lit. I'm bringing lights and fog machines. It's going to be
It's gonna be tonight.
It is tonight at Trans Picos from 8 to 12, and after party is from 12 to 4. So
Wow.
come socialize with socialists.
4 in the morning. Whoa.
The suggested donation is $15 at least, but nobody will be turned away at the door for lack of funds.
There you go. And Michael, you reached your 1,000-person patron plateau.
We're at actually 1,007 now. So
And
thanks,
you have
everybody.
superseded it.
We're going to keep going, obviously, but the things that we promised for the 1,000 are going to happen now. So begin working on some animation soon, and Matt are going to play Wolfenstein. I don't know the date on that yet, but I want to thank everybody, and the show's really, really good. You should check it out and get all the content.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break, head into the fun half, and if you are a freebieer, we will tag on, hopefully, our surprise guest, who will be with us in about, hopefully, 45 minutes. Okay, be right back.
He is like the dark.
favorite ending of all of the versions of songs that we have for that La Poupée. It is that and what I'm trying to think of what they what is that I can't now I've forgotten what kind of instrument that is. Is
Cello?
it not a bass, it's cello. That's correct. That's I never knew I had such an affinity for the cello, but apparently I do. So
Plucked cello is also good when they pluck it.
yes.
I'm a fan of that.
Oh, yes. Totally a fan of the plucking cello, without a doubt. Let's go to an 847 phone call. You're calling from an 847 number. Who's this? Where are you calling from? Oh, we've got that little problem again. Bear with us, folks. Sometimes this happens. Not exactly sure why. Our phone system gets a little bit hinky at times. Let's try this again. We'll start with this. And then we will go with this. Calling from an 847 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? Sound up? We got that thing again. I'm going to have to call in again. Hold on. Sorry, folks. I don't know why that does that.
It's a very haunting sound, too.
It is a very haunting sound, but it's always that sound, right?
I apologize if this is my fault.
Thank you for calling in the
I've
majority
got pretty
report.
bad luck with technology.
The host will be with you shortly.
It's probably because I'm a witch. It tends to break around me.
Are you just saying that just your mere presence could negatively impact technology that happens around you?
I mean, I'm not saying that. It is a highly suspicious coincidence. that this
Remind
keeps
me
happening
never to go near a bus or a train with you.
I mean, I just got my computer fixed, and the
already broken.
problem is continuing. So I'm
Wow.
gonna have to bring it back to the fucking shop. So sorry, patrons, you're gonna have to wait a little while longer for my blog post.
Calling from an 847 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? Oh, nuts. Nuts.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't understand. What is going on here? Calling from an 847 area code. Who's this?
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay. Where are you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hey, this is Gabe from Chicago.
Hello, Gabe from Chicago. Let's not get too Chicago bogged down. Why don't you tell us about Dan Lipinski, who is being thrown under the bus by other politicians out there. It's nice to see. This is and we should just say this is a great example of watching a party move to the left. The idea that sitting Democratic politicians would not support an incumbent that's not something you see very often. I don't even remember seeing it. Luis Gutierrez, Jan Schakowsky, basically said we're not going to endorse the incumbent. We're going to endorse the challenger.
The challenger for which race?
For Dan Lipinski's race.
Oh, is Dan Lipinski a state rep?
No, he's a House member.
Oh, he's a congressman. And
He's a
pretty
congressman.
conservative Democrat, and
Yep.
he's getting challenged by. I don't actually know much about his opponent, but I think
Which district is he in?
I don't know. That's a good. It's
Oh,
a
you said
third.
he's-
It's a
he's-
third
Third
district.
Oh, I don't know where the third district is.
All right. Well, all right. So
you know all about your shitty. You know all about your garbage pizza, but nothing about your politics. That's great.
Well,
I believe the last time I called, I said I didn't know anything about our garbage pizza.
Oh, you're the vegan in Chicago. Great. Really great.
I support you.
I'm in the 9th district.
Okay. All right. Well, what's
Plant-based
on your
diet
mind?
in 4-degree weather.
What's on
Well,
your
anyway, I wanted to call. I've two real quick PSAs about activism, and then I have one question for you, Sam.
Sure.
So first of all, you kind of touched on what I wanted to talk about with the first PSA, which is the protest. But there's also going to be protests on Sunday done by a different organization. I don't have the organization that's organizing it down, but I just want to say folks should look out for Sunday protests too.
Okay.
The whole weekend of marching. If you're in Chicago, it's 1 p.m. at Trump Tower on Sunday. The other thing, I was having a conversation with someone earlier this week, and I realized this is something that people don't know. So activism can be done in kind of two ways. There's direct action, right? And then there's indirect action. And you kind of have to integrate indirect action into your life every day. And one good way that you can do that most people don't consider is to use encrypted messaging systems.
Yep.
Because people believe that if you aren't aren't talking about things that you want to be encrypted, or you don't care about privacy, it's not something you should worry about or not something that's worth doing. But I just want to put it out there that if you want to help out in a way that's actually significant, use encrypted messaging systems for everything you do, because the folks that are using it to talk about things that they don't want people to know about are if they're the only ones using it, then anyone looking to decrypt those messages knows exactly where to look. So you add noise by just talking about your day on encrypted systems, and it makes it much harder to find the people who are actually making changes in the world. I use Signal personally, and I want to encourage people to use Signal.
Or WhatsApp is also pretty good.
Aren't those hackable too, though?
Well, first of all, WhatsApp is supposedly very difficult, and Signal is also very difficult. But the point that he's making is that even to the extent that there is some insecurity there, the more that people use it, the greater the noise to signal ratio. So it becomes much harder for anybody to isolate conversations that are actually relevant.
It's almost like herd immunity or something.
Yeah, yes,
fair enough. Looking for a needle in a haystack.
In fact, that was in FUBAR. At the end of it, when I wrote a jokey thing about going underground, the whole idea was to increase your noise to signal ratio. Because you cannot scrape or get yourself off of the internet, you can't do that. You can't hide. So what you can do is put out so much false information about yourself that nobody knows what the real story is. So that's the same theory. All right, last thing. What was it?
Okay, so I had a question about the media's approach to the word lie, and I'm interested in your opinion. I can take your answer off the air. You're a talking head guy. You're in the media everywhere. Well, not everywhere. You're in the media. You're a social justice activist. You talk to these MSNBC people. They're weirdly afraid of using the term lie and calling people liars, even when it's obvious. And I don't understand that logic. I don't know if it's a legal thing or whatever, but I'll listen to your answer off the air.
Okay.
Thanks.
It's not a legal thing. I think it is analogous to, and this is what I was sort of decrying during the whole Cernovich thing, was that there is a hesitancy to state the obvious because it may be controversial. And in this instance, that has always been, and certainly it was even worse during the Bush administration. They would not say something was a lie because that involves, in their mind, being knowing what the intent of the speaker was. So they will say it's a mistruth, but that lie involves an intent to deceive. And for a lot of them, it is too far a bridge to go
Just
to
a
say
heads
that there
up,
was
I'm
an
lying.
intent.
Heads up. My intention's to mislead actively right now. Or in the vernacular, lie. All right, everybody go ahead. We ready? I'm about to lie. Everybody ready now?
Lie.
And lie.
Calling from a 646
Melania,
area code.
I love and respect you. Come
Who's
on.
this? 646 area code. Who's this?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Oh, hi. This is Joanna. I'm a returning phone caller. I'm the one that Michael puts to sleep.
Okay.
Sorry, this joke was funny.
No, that's all right. A lot
I
of
want
people
to say two things quickly. I want to say, Jamie, I think your conversations with this new Me Too movement and women finally speaking up. I think your conversation yesterday about Alicia was really awesome. I think it kind of made a lot of the made you kind of like shed light on like what a lot of women go through on the regular, and it's
thank you.
important to have it's important to have those kind of conversations. And I think you're an awesome addition, and have fun tonight. It's going to be awesome.
Thanks.
And
I plan to.
Cool. And number two, I guess what I wanted to say is I am I teach, and I was telling, and I forgot to send the damn survey to say I'm going to send them to you via the email.
Okay.
But a lot of these kids are like spewing this white winger stuff. Like I told you, we're fucking kids from immigrants. Like they're Latinos, and I still am like created like I don't know if that classroom was like an oddity. I'm going to be teaching next week, and I'm going to see how that room is going to be like. But it's really like I had to go away for a month. I like went away in Maine with no internet with my puppy and just wrote for the whole 30 days because it was crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, sadly enough,
Yeah.
this is a real thing. I have a friend who is a Latino who grew up in Brooklyn who was in a right-wing skinhead gang for a while before he saw the light.
You know what it is, Jamie? It's like people forget that Latinos, like personally, my parents are from Chile. And Chilenos are very, like Latino, South America, very conservative ideals and morals. And if you're fed that every day and then you find this alternative group that's kind of like in your age range and spewing the same crap, it makes sense. The only problem is that it doesn't make sense in the overall scheme of like your life. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? I don't know. I completely understand how a Latino, someone like from Mexico or from Chile, Argentina, Brazil even could fall into those kind of things because we're very conservative folks, which I don't understand why these Republicans hate us so much. I mean, really, easily could have been, my father easily could have been a Republican.
Yeah.
He wasn't because he was like, they want to deport me, but
People also don't realize the racial dynamics at play in a lot of these countries. There are light-skinned upper-class people, people who are darker skinned are considered to be lower class, etc.
Oh my God, yes. I mean, in Chile, I'm speaking about my family particularly, so I don't want to generalize, but because I'm like white with blue eyes, I was like always like, come hither, look how successful she's been, and I was always pinned against my other cousins, and it was really kind of crazy, you know what I mean? But it comes from colonialism, and it comes from a lot of bullshit at the end of the day, you know what I mean? So
well, listen,
it's really interesting. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, I gotta let you go because we got a lot of callers, and I gotta move on. But
okay,
interesting
yeah,
stuff.
no, so thank you,
Appreciate
Sam. You've been awesome.
Thanks for the call.
And I'll let you know how my class goes. Bye.
All right, good. Looking forward to hearing that. Calling from a 518 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, this is first-time caller Andrew from New Zealand.
Hello, Andrew from New Zealand. What's on your mind?
Have you heard our Prime Minister's having a baby? She's just got pregnant.
Who's having a baby?
What a loser.
Oh, your Prime Minister. Oh,
It's
congratulations.
on
Congratulations, Tara. That's I'm very glad to hear that.
Yep. And can I get an apology for sending us Scotty B and Peter Thiel?
Yes, I'm sorry we sent you Peter Thiel. And
What's your name and address? Never mind, I'll get it. Great calls today.
Something I don't see much talk about in the US from leftists is changes to your voting system. So, I mean, we changed our voting system from plurality voting, which you've got, to a form of proportional voting in 1993. And in the next election, went from 2 parties to 6 parties, just like that. And I think it's done a lot to help sort of decorrupt our politics because voters have such a choice of parties. And so parties sort of self-regulate from corruption as a result of voter choice because they know if they go too far wrong, voters will just vote them out.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean that makes sense to me. If we had a There's a lot of people also ranked choice voting would achieve some of that as well, I think. And I think that would be a good thing.
Yeah, I think choice voting would be best for America of the voting systems I'm aware of. Just because it wouldn't require constitutional changes. You could implement it at the state level. Each state could just pass it individually.
Yep, I agree. All right, well, listen, I appreciate the call, and congrats again on the pregnancy. That's really great.
Everybody chipped in.
Everybody chipped in.
Everybody made it up.
Calling from a 206 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
I've been listening to your show for a long time, and I'm a little concerned. You're talking about a lot of Bitcoin stuff, but really you're comparing it to Beanie Babies, and people don't know this, but Beanie Babies are still really popular. There's a Chef Robuchon doll, for instance.
Right.
That's selling for about $1,500. Oh my gosh, actually, last one sold for $7,000.
Wow.
And then there's the Diana doll or the Diana doll. That's the most expensive one. I'm really kind of upset, when I read the chat stream, and they don't really know anything about Beanie Babies, but they keep comparing it to tulips and Bitcoin. And I'm a little upset by that.
Right.
And so
well,
how do you feel about it?
I think Beanie Babies have clearly stood the test of time, and there's now a report out. I saw a report today, and that from I think it was Business Insider in Australia. In fact, I don't know, where is that story? It's possible that one of the big first bumps of Bitcoin was a function of one investor driving up the price.
Oh, that was right. That's probably from the Diana doll.
No, I'm not talking about Beanie Babies.
Oh, okay.
But I do
Sorry.
appreciate the call. All right, thank you very much.
I mean, if Beanie Babies have no value, I don't know how I'm going to retire. That's been my plan all along.
Bitcoin. Yes. Thank you. James is a genius. That's the best. That is him and Raygun. Best listener contributions.
Calling from a 440 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Yes. Hello. Is this the French movie Rape Joke Jew?
French
Hang up.
movie.
Hang up.
What? Okay. No.
Make it funny or hang up.
Quick.
Do it. Get funny.
I want to say, only Kenyans come from Chicago. It's a real shithole. Believe me. Many people are saying it. Shout out to Chris Cream Christie. Do you see what I did there? Smart person.
Decent.
Suck it, Christie.
Good day, sir.
6'3", 239 pounds, baby.
Nope. Sorry.
Was that Bernie Sanders?
I don't know. Folks, we've just lost Carl Higbie. Who was Carl Higbie? He was the face of the AmeriCorps under Donald Trump. He was like one of those staffers who was put in as like one of those temporary guys. He was the chief of external affairs at the CNCS, and it was appointment by the Trump administration. I don't think he had been confirmed, and I don't know if his position was one that needed to be confirmed. But nevertheless, he had a greatest hits of really one of the more Trumpy of Trump nominees. Here is a clip of Carl Higbie. He was on The Sound of Freedom in December of 2013.
Great fucking
this
show.
is a great show.
Sounds a lot like racism.
The CNCS, incidentally, is the Corporation for National Community Service. So this is a guy who had deep, deep desire to do, to help for communities around this country. And here he is speaking on Sound of Freedom in December 2013.
I don't care what color your skin is, but I do care what action you take. Why is it okay for people like Louis Farrakhan to say that white people are promoting birth control to black women because they fear becoming a minority?
Oh, I just don't want to be a dad.
Are you serious? If a white guy said something like that, he'd be buried under the jail. Aside from the fact we're promoting birth control to black women because of the incredibly high rate of children born out of wedlock that are undercared for or not cared for at all. The taxpayers are tired of supporting government checks to going to these people who think that breeding is a form of employment. I'm sorry.
There you go.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I love the part.
I apologize
I promote birth control of black women because I don't want to be a dad.
A little social reproduction theory from Carl Higby.
Yeah, indeed.
You keep the brother minister's name out of your fucking mouth, white boy.
And this is a greatest hit of his from March of 2013 on that same Sound of Freedom.
They show the body to the American people because
Yeah, I don't
they
get
didn't
that.
want to upset them. Well, look what happened in 9/11.
They didn't want to upset the Muslim population. They didn't want to say, "Oh, this is a." They didn't want Obama, the Muslim, who was born in Kenya. Don't even get me started on that. Said, "I don't want to upset the Muslims because this will really offend the Muslim culture if we show pictures of screwed up Bin Laden."
There you go.
I really want to host him on
Don't even get me
CMBS.
started on the whole conspiracy theory. And then, what's that? Oh, so there we don't have the third one? Well, I mean, that's just a couple of examples of some of his greatest hits. Say the black race had lax morals.
White people are so stupid. It was Tanzania.
The other one that got screwed up was he said that we should have basically like a national guard where you can just set your gun up at the border, and then if anyone who crosses you, it's open game. So.
Yeah, really nice guy. Yeah, Islamophobe, racist, all of that. Anti-gay.
In Stephen Miller's Rolodex.
Great guy, but just a little bit too loose with the lips on the radio.
All right, I'd like him on my show. I understand that Ruben will get him first, but I'll take him after.
That's right. And I guess we should just show this picture. This is really nice. This is from Facebook, and apparently, Republicans and conservatives are under assault, ladies and gentlemen. They want to express just how under assault they are. So you'll recall that during the Holocaust, the one that took place in Germany, not the one that's happening right now for conservatives, but the
historic one,
the historic Holocaust, Jews were had to have not only identification that they were Jews, but they had to literally wear their identification on their sleeve in the form of a yellow star with the words Juden written in them. And, because conservatives are persecuted in the same way that Jews were during the Holocaust, this guy from Militias United says, I got these from a website called Tactical Shit. I'm not Jewish, but these are a show of solidarity of the Republicans that are too afraid to speak up in a politically correct society, as well as to the Republicans and conservatives in Hollywood and many other places. And so they are Jewish stars with the words gun owner or Republican in them. Because this is what it's like to be a conservative. This is so typical of the conservative mindset. Like even in criticizing, and I've told the story, but I was critical of someone I knew about their voting for Donald Trump, and not even in particularly harsh terms. And it was compared to, my critique was compared to the pulling out of Soviet dissidents from their homes at 3 a.m. and being sent to Siberia. Let me be clear again. My email critique of their vote was analogous to being a Soviet dissident and being ripped from your home at 3 a.m. and sent literally to Siberia.
Rachel, can I make a legitimate point for 1 second?
The amount of self-pity that these conservatives have, like, nobody likes me. I can't. Just this whole New York Times thing too.
It's very difficult to be out there as a patriot. Something that, of course, you wouldn't understand as a Luna Bar consuming gaylord who pretends to know how to do housing. But if you're out there trying to advocate for patriarchy, you don't get calls from boring Chilean professors going on and on and on. You don't get credit from the public. You are oppressed. And this is a way of signaling that we recognize, we stand in silence with our brothers who would like to, at a group meeting, say that women's brains don't let them do math, as an example, but are too afraid to say it. They would like to be able to say.
Here's the thing I don't understand. Aren't these folks afraid that by actually indicating that they're going to be carted off to the concentration camps? It's really bold.
Look at James Damon.
Yep.
Fucking camp, that big doofus head of his, that poor fucking kid.
It's possible they're being a little disingenuous here, but I would still like to know what it's like to live such a charmed life that the mildest criticism feels like Nazi persecution.
Indeed.
Must be nice.
It's like being gay in the 1950s.
That's a great fucking point. I've never felt like a fag in all my life, unlike you, Rachel, because I'm a real man. But now I realize, because I can't say that girls can't engineer because they're too emotional, I'm like a fucking homo.
It's like that. Like the guy wrote in there, like, where he writes, like, I am a minority in every circle I move in. Whether it's the PhDs I hang out with or the former hedge fund guys I hang out with. Oh,
Do we have tiny violin music?
I actually have one on my phone, I think. Leon Gittins. Hi, Sam. Just a quick heads up from your London correspondent. Those of us who are organizing demonstration for when Trump came to London are gutted that he pulled out. Perhaps we were too successful in organizing the thousands of Trump haters. Word got out that he would face huge numbers of people that would embarrass him. I think that's exactly what happened. So he made some lame excuse and bailed on the visit. Boris is in the news again, suggesting we build a bridge across the English Channel linking the UK with France. This has brought about huge amounts of ridicule, as he's the chief architect of Brexit and has been calling for us to pull up the drawbridge for the last 18 months. The collapse of a private company, Carillion, tasked with building and running hundreds of public services and government contracts, has made Corbyn's call to nationalize essential utilities, such as the railways, energy, and water companies, even more popular. Now many people are calling for this to happen, but they won't. But that won't happen with this Tory government. You have a blue wave. We have our red one. Leon of London. Thank you, Leon. Just another starving artist. The L train does suck. It's true. Terrible to the economy and arts community, but the economy and studio space in Long Island City, Queens is tremendous. It'd be even better for Christo we can find somebody to share our studio space. Meanwhile, Jamie, the DSA party sounds great, but I doubt my wife will let me go. Sad. And by the way, Now Is the Winter of Our Discotheque is a great track by the effing Champs. P.S. R.I.P. Joe Frank.
Oh, man, I thought that was lining up for a good cock joke. That was boring.
Bang Bang Bart. Listening to Judy really displays how the lib brain has totally melted into goo. They've hit the same irrational derangement level that suburban conservatives did during Obama. It's going to be really unbearable watching these white liberals taking pussy hat selfies tomorrow for the second time in a year while holding up homophobic signs of Trump and Putin being gay or whatever.
Oh, those signs aren't homophobic.
After that, they'll go back to being useless Twitter ranters screaming into the void. Well, I don't know.
Well.
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily judge. I think a lot of these folks, I don't know what anybody specifics are doing, but I think there's
Judy's funny, so who cares?
I think there's a lot of evidence that a lot of these people are organizing too, frankly.
If they're listening to this show, they've got potential.
That's true.
Tom Cotton put a cease and desist is sending a form letter to anyone from Indivisible in his area, telling them any further correspondence he's going to forward to the Capitol Police.
That's going to be an interesting response from the Capitol Police when they're like, "What do you want us to do with this? Are you okay, sir?" One more, Nick. I'm assuming you went over it with Judy, but if not, did you hear about Trump getting spanked by Stormy Daniels with a Forbes magazine? Yes, we did talk about it. Attorney Andrew asked Senator Sanders if he intends to introduce the parts of his Medicare for All as singular bills. For instance, once CHIP is renewed, introduce Medicare expansion for 18 and under the part of the Medicare for All bill. It's actually fairly difficult to criticize the portions of the bill in isolation. Also, everyone who is not Jamie, instead of criticizing reasons for not eating meat, can you all justify why you ought to eat meat?
No. It just tastes good and
Habit.
Habit. Also iron
Convenience.
deficiency. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't criticize reasons for not eating meat.
Yeah, I don't know when.
Yeah,
any of us have done
I
that. We
probably when the joke about a plant-based diet in Chicago. People are very, very
But it's
hair
sensitive.
triggered. Chill, chill, chill. Take a vegan-oriented spa day.
Single Bills. I will ask him that.
Hey Sam, did you hear about the Stormy Daniels with the Trump likes to get spanked to the Forbes? Did you hear about that?
Oh my God.
But apparently he didn't use a rubber.
Theodore Cuxtable. Hi, Sam. Some
Condoms
government
do
agencies
suck, but that's pretty risky, huh? No?
are not subject to shutdowns and are able to work for an extended period of time because they're funded as working capital fund. I work in one of those organizations, which is why I'm hesitant to call in. We are still not sure how this administration will respond. My spouse is also a foreign national, and the whole discussion is completely off base. Reagan touched on this earlier in the week, too. USCIS doesn't just let people in. They need a family connection and financial support. The applications alone are over $1,000, and you have to prove your income is sufficient to support. We need to take every opportunity to get the discussion back into the realm of reality and away from the extremist rhetoric of the right. Otherwise, my spouse will be deported, and I'll have to worry about neighbors coming over to bang my spouse. Everything but the last sentence is true. All right, good for you. Anthony from Baltimore, Bernie voice is, hi, this is Bernie from Vermont, first-time caller, long-time listener. Just wanted to call in and say left is best, Bubba Booey. Homo says what? Thanks for taking my call. Stein 2020.
Baba Booey Cox.
I love Sarah Palin. So I read the Fire and Fury book, and I'm totally disgusted with Jamie. If she's determined to be a girther apologist, she should just give her resistance card to Jervanka. I'm not sure.
I don't get it.
I don't either. Do the Democrats need to actually come away with a DACA fix or shut down the government for a few days to show Republicans they're willing to shoot the hostages? Lastly, Trump is the embodiment of white privilege. And seriously, Michael, Jervanka needs their resistance pass back. They were fighting Bannon.
Are you serious? Oh, man, that is maybe the dumbest take I've ever heard of.
I think that's got to be a joke, right?
Okay, I hope that's a joke.
Contagious. The cello is dope, Sam. After 2018, what's the impact of the Democrats censoring Trump? Well, I just think that if there's a big enough a victory, I think Trump maybe goes out there and says, like, I'm being prevented from doing everything, but I think he's going to start getting scared about, investigations.
He's going to blame He's probably going to pivot actually against Republicans.
He might, but I don't know.
I think he will to some extent. And I also think he's totally genuinely hoping for a terrorist attack.
Yes. Well, that has been reported. That has actually been reported.
I mean, September 11th happened, so that think about history works in nonlinear ways.
That's right. Good things happen to people who wait.
Good things happen to...
Guys, I got some breaking news.
What's that?
The LA Times just voted in a landslide to unionize.
Oh, that's good.
That's great.
LA Times.
Taking on Trunk. The Tribune Company.
Oh, okay.
Hell yeah.
Thanks, MR Crew, for putting together an amazing show that not only tackles the problems of today, but does so in a fun manner. Where else can you have such esteemed guests and still have the host, a Yenta Maddow, say, Wyatt is my bad bitch cuckboy? Wu-Tang Clang. Telegram has shitty encryption. For the love of God, don't use it. Let anyone you love use it. Signal is solid. WhatsApp is solid. Yes.
Which one did they say was bad?
Telegram is bad. Signal and WhatsApp are the two.
I'm total.
Standards.
WhatsApp is great.
All right. I'm just going to have to disconnect from the phone system for a moment. In the event that we do get a phone call, but we may take a quick break right before if I get word that our caller is going to call in. Jake the Snake. Hey, MR Crew, a few weeks ago you had a caller that pretended to go to UC Berkeley, complained to you that you can't talk about capitalism on campuses, and then called Sam a libertarian. I just started my first econ class, and according to the $280 book I had to buy, insurance causes obesity. The authors argue that people having access to insurance that will help them pay their medical bills gives people an economic incentive to be obese. The solution would be to have people only pay out of pocket so they could watch their weight. The authors then went on to argue that the minimum wage causes unemployment. Capitalism seems pretty safe on this campus. That is just bonkers. I wouldn't even call that, to be honest with you, capitalism. I would call that like bunker shit. That's not even, it's just
You're
absurd.
calling the ideas bunker shit.
It's just absurd.
I need a Jew pin.
Sources say that $130,000 was paid by Melania so she didn't have to spank Trump again with pictures of the children again. Gerald Kushner. In Wisconsin, Governor Walker just called a special session to take up 10 bills. All 10 are to limit access to or place restrictions on Medicaid and food stamps. Unbelievable. They're going all in before they run out of time. Hashtag. Ever since I could know the words, I've grown up in a country at war. My earliest perceptions of the world came through the lens of a paranoid post 9/11 hysteria. The war on terror is now approaching 17 years of age, by far the longest in U.S. history. War has been completely normalized in our culture, and honestly, I think that I will have a longer-term impact than anything Trump will do unless he kills us all. Rex Tillerson just announced the U.S. plans on long-term occupation of Syria. Why aren't we making it a core electoral demand among progressives and the left to demand an end to the so-called war on terror? What would that kind of dissent look like, and where are the anti-war protests? The anti-war movement, as far as I could tell, lost a lot of steam after 2006, and I'm not quite sure why.
Well, I think Bernie Sanders started to lay out a more non-interventionist foreign policy strategy in a speech he made not too long ago.
Yes, I think that's true. I also think, though, he did not start the campaign and really at any time during the campaign begin to formulate a full-on policy. He had a bit of a critique.
It.
No, it's true.
No, it's totally true.
And he didn't have any foreign policy personnel. Now he has corrected that. He's built out that part of his shop, and to his credit, but
someone would have to do what Corbyn did after a terror attack and say, I can't remember which was it, that concert, and he said, what we're doing, we need to change our entire approach. And that moment, like, people criticized him. How can you say that at this time? But it turned out people were like, oh, actually, a lot of us wanted to hear exactly that.
Yeah, I think there is an appetite for it, and I think it just needs to be, and there is a higher bar, no doubt, in society for a higher bar in society for the left.
It's going to come from the grassroots, though, because we have a deeply entrenched military establishment that is totally bipartisan.
Yes, that's true. And that's why it's that much more important, too, to have a fully formed policy and to go out there to have the answers, not just as a critique, but also as going forward. And Tomcat. Did you guys see the interview with Jordan Peterson's interview he did on Channel 4 earlier this week? My centrist friends really dug it, as did Sargon of Akkad. But I just don't seem to get him. He just seems to parrot the same points popular with Sam Harris's fan base. Well, it sounds like you get him.
The interview did a really poor job. Like, we need to do a lot better with that stuff.
Okay. Am I missing something with Peterson? No. Mark in Jersey. Hey, Sam, I sent you the Jimmy Dore clip I was talking about yesterday. Hope you guys, through email and Twitter, hopefully found it as amusing as I did. Yeah, I watched part of it. I found it mildly amusing. Going to march in Morristown, New Jersey tomorrow. I live in New Jersey's 11th district, where we have a Republican congressman that hasn't faced a challenge in many years. There is a group I'm part of, New Jersey 11th for Change, and right now, what just happened? Right now, there's a debate amongst the group because Democratic leaders and chairs in all the counties in our district have already endorsed Mickey Sherrill for the seat well before any primary. On a small scale, it reminds me of superdelegates in the primary. Why does the Democratic Party continue to put endorsements out before the Democratic primaries? When will they start letting the voters decide again? Well, I mean, the voters can decide, right? And I can understand that's being annoying, but the reason why they become Democratic Party officials is so that they can influence the process. That's why people take positions and people run for positions, so that they can influence the outcome. Now, I don't know any of the candidates, but clearly you don't like that candidate and want a different candidate. And so the idea is that you need to be in those positions. I mean, when we have like people like Kem Champion who used to call in, and when he gets into the party apparatus, the whole idea is that he can influence who the candidates are. So, look, instead of saying like, why do people will to power? And then why do they think that just because they have been successful in attaining some power, why do they insist on exercising it? Instead of saying that, say, how can I get some of that power? Or how can I influence the outcome by helping people who are like-minded attain power? That's what you should be thinking about. Not complaining that the people who have assumed power are using it, because of course they are.
Getting serious about power, not bitching about it.
Well, I agree with all that, but also, on a more positive note, the DNC Unity Commission is working on a deal to drastically cut the number of superdelegates. Because people like Nomiki Konst got involved.
Well, and to be honest with you, I think there was broad-based. I mean, I spoke to Nancy Pelosi's daughter. Christine Pelosi at the DNC, and she was like, "We've got to reform this." And I don't. I mean, I would guess she's not that far to the left, but yes, that needed to be reformed. And I never thought that they were as powerful as people presumed, anyways. Yeah. But all right, we're going to get a call here in about 2 minutes, and so why don't we take a break here for a moment? We'll take a little musical break, and then we'll come back on. Be right back, hopefully, with the Senate. We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report on the phone. It is always a pleasure to welcome to this program the Senator from Vermont, Bernie Sanders. Bernie, welcome to the program.
Great to be with you, Sam.
So give us a sense of what's happening in the Senate in terms of the funding of the government going forward.
Well, I think it comes down, Sam, to a pretty simple issue. I think by now, he may not have known this a few days ago, but I think by now Senator McConnell, the Republican leader, understands that he does not have the 60 votes he needs to pass a one-month continuing resolution. And the reason he doesn't have the votes is that Democrats and a growing number of Republicans are sick and tired of trying to run a $4 trillion operation, i.e. the United States government, on a month-to-month basis. And just last night, the Pentagon issued a statement saying that they cannot continue to function effectively month by month. They need an annual budget, which is what we need. So he doesn't have the votes, and I think that may have occurred to him, or at least dawned on him today. And he is now going to have to sit down and negotiate in a way that he has not done before. And what that means is dealing with three fundamental issues. Number one, parity for defense and non-defense spending. There are enormous economic problems facing the working families of this country, whether it's the need to refund the community health center program, whether it's the need to deal with pensions, to deal with student debt, to deal with infrastructure, you name it. There are problems that we cannot continue to kick the can down the road on. Second of all, we have got to deal with the Dreamers issue. A poll came out yesterday. You may have seen it from CBS. 87% of the American people say that we should provide legal status to the Dreamers, and many of them believe they should get a path towards citizenship. This is not particularly controversial. It's what the American people want. We've got to do that. And thirdly, we have to deal with disaster relief for Florida, Texas, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands. That's it. And within the Senate, actually, I think, compromises will be struck. I certainly will not get everything I want, but we can reach an agreement. But McConnell has got to understand he's going to have to negotiate.
I mean, it sounds he doesn't, never mind 60 votes, it doesn't even sound like he may even have 50 votes, which is pretty amazing.
That's correct. That is correct. And I think the difficulty is that in the past, and probably in the beginning of this process, he kind of thought, well, the Democrats, they're just going to go along with it. They're too afraid to stand up and fight back. But what we have seen in the last few shutdowns is more and more. In the beginning, there were just a few of us, and then there were 30. And now I think we're somewhere around 40. And what is also true is a number of Republicans are saying, for good reasons. Their philosophy is very different than mine. But you go to any business CEO and you say, hey, try to run your business, a large business, on a month-to-month basis and say you're crazy.
Right.
It's wasteful. It's irresponsible. You can't do it. And that's what a number of Republicans understand.
So in the event that Mitch McConnell does sit down and does try and craft some type of compromise to the extent that you can, that you have a sense of this, what are the red lines? Like, what will you not walk away from?
Well, let me just say, rather than looking at it that way, I would say that there's got to be a strong compromise dealing with Dreamers, which means maintaining the legal status of all of the Dreamers and providing a path toward citizenship and protecting their parents as well, and doing more. So I want a strong Dreamers bill. As you know, Durbin and Lindsey Graham have worked on something. Doesn't go as far as I would like, but it is a start.
Right.
And I think we can rally support around that. Now, where, I'm not all that comfortable. The Republicans want to spend zillions of dollars on border security. I think there's a lot of technology out there that we can maintain border security for a lot less cost than Trump wants to do. That, I may have to give more than I would like on that issue. On the issue of parity, I think there cannot be a compromise. We have had, and again, I know this sounds very inside the Beltway, but it really impacts every American. What the Republicans have agreed to, what we have agreed to, since 2011, when we did the first Budget Act, is for every dollar you spend on the military, you spend it on domestic needs. And we have so many needs in this country. That has got to be maintained. And again, where the fight will be, another fight will be, is how much do you spend on disaster relief? What kind of help does Puerto Rico get? There'll be arguments about that. But I suspect we could reach an agreement. And
in the event that you do reach a compromise in the Senate, then what happens? It's got to go back to the House, and then that's a question of how many Democrats will sign on to help, because the Republicans doesn't sound like they'll be able to pass something like that in the House.
Well, Republicans, they are very right wing, but they're not stupid, and they're looking at the political world. And the political world right now, for them, you saw the results in the state Senate election in Wisconsin early this week. You saw what happened in Alabama. You saw what happened on November 7th. The American people are sick and tired of a right-wing extremist government and an unstable president. And when you have Republicans controlling the House, the Senate, and the White House, I know who the American people are going to hold accountable for this shutdown. So I think our Republican colleagues over in the House, they may not like what they're going to have to do, but they're going to have to do it.
In the coming week or so, I know you're intending to roll out a Medicare for all. How is that going to do? I mean, are you going to be doing single bills that will ultimately provide a comprehensive Medicare for all program, or is it going to be in one bill? How's that going to work?
Well, we have a bill. We have a bill which has, I think, 15 or 16 co-sponsors and a whole lot of support in the House as well. It is essentially a Medicare for all bill. Medicare is a very successful and popular program in this country. We take it for granted, but if you ask seniors, they're very appreciative and supportive of the Medicare program that currently exists. And what people are saying, if it works for people 65 and older, why don't we make it available to everybody? Why don't we do what every other major country on earth is doing? What we're going to be doing on Tuesday night is, I think, for the first time ever, doing a live town meeting on Medicare for all. We're going to have some really great panels, people talking about what goes on in other countries, what the current dysfunctional system is doing to the American people, how the high cost of healthcare in this country impacts our economy and the business community. It's going to be very interesting, and we're going to be live streaming it, not through the corporate media, but doing it through 3 digital outlets. So that's going to be quite an interesting enterprise.
I think we may actually be doing a simulcast of that as
Fantastic.
well on
Love to have
our
you.
channel. And so what then what? I mean, what happens? I mean, where are the efforts going into 2018? Right, because that is the next big. I mean, that seems to me to be growing in importance. Taking back at least one of the houses of government. And
Absolutely, you're absolutely right, and there are a lot of efforts going into that. And if I have anything to say about it, and I do have a little bit to say about it, the effort is going to be not just on raising zillions of dollars and putting that money into TV ads and hiring expensive consultants. It is going to be building strong grassroots movements, increasing voter turnout, raising political consciousness in this country. I think I am not speaking out of school here when I say that anyone who objectively looks at where the Democratic Party has been for the last many years will see that their model of how they function has been a failure. Obama won 2 elections, that's good, but they have lost close to 1,000 legislative seats all over this country, and we have got to begin the effort at a grassroots level to take back state legislatures, city councils, school boards. And I can tell you right now, this week, I beg your pardon, it's not this week, shortly, there will be many, many hundreds of young people and working people coming to Washington, D.C., who are going to be running for office at the local and state level, many of them for the first time, who are going to receive some training about how to run effective campaigns from a variety of progressive organizations here. So the goal is increase voter turnout, raise public and political consciousness, and let's start winning seats that in the past we did not win. And the other point is, Democrats cannot be successful long-term unless they have a 50-state strategy. It is beyond belief that in half the states of this country there is virtually no real Democratic Party. In Alabama, where Doug Jones ended up winning, what he concluded very early on is there was not a Democratic Party in Alabama. He had to build his own successful effort. But we need Democratic parties in Alabama and Mississippi and Wyoming and Nevada, all over this country.
And are you seeing indications that that's happening out of the DNC?
I am. You know, at the end of the primary election, Secretary Clinton and I sat down and we agreed about the need for what we ended up calling a Democratic Unity Commission. And that had people from Clinton's camp and from my camp and some other people. And they set about looking at 4 major areas of concern with the goal of creating a much more dynamic and open Democratic Party. Issue number 1 was the issue of superdelegates, which I think most people understand in the past is we just cannot continue a situation where many, many hundreds, I think it was over 700 in the 2016 election. Superdelegates accountable really to no electorate were able to vote however they wanted, despite what may have happened in their states. So we're taking a hard look at superdelegates, and I think we're going to make some very, very significant reductions in the number of superdelegates who will cast votes in the next presidential primary. Issue number two, you have states in this country, New York comes to mind as the worst example, where you will have to register as a Democrat literally 6 months before the primary to participate. And that is just incredibly undemocratic and restrictive. And that has got to change. And I think there's agreement about that. There's agreement about changes in caucuses so people can vote by absentee ballot. There's also agreement that the DNC itself has got to be a much more open and democratic structure. People do not know, I think, where the money goes, how people are hired, what the strategy is. It has got to be much more from the bottom on up than from the top on down. And we're making progress in those areas.
And lastly, about getting back to 2018, do you think there needs to be a nationalized Democratic message beyond, put a check on Trump, or and if so, what should that message be?
The answer is yes, I do. I think it will be a losing strategy to simply point out that we have a pathological liar who is president, somebody who changes his mind every day, somebody who is a racist, and all the other things we know about Trump. I'm sure that will appeal to all of the anti-Trump people, but if we're going to win elections, we have to do more than that, and that means we have to develop an agenda that makes sense to ordinary people. We have to analyze the problems that working families are facing and then come up with solutions to them. I think that the idea of a Medicare for all single-payer program is an idea which is gaining support every single day all over this country. So it's not simply a question of preventing Republicans from throwing 30 million people off of health insurance. It's moving to guarantee health care to all people in a cost-effective way. That's issue number one. I think creating millions of decent-paying jobs by rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure, very, very important. I think pay equity for women. This is the year 2018. Women should not be making 80 cents on the dollar compared to men. I think the idea of making public colleges and universities is an idea, by the way, which is growing all over this country. I was in San Francisco a number of months ago, and their college is now tuition-free, and they've seen a significant increase in the number of people who are attending that college. Raising the minimum wage, we're seeing great gains in that area in communities all over America, but at the least, people should be making $15 an hour. Dealing with, despite Trump's insanity regarding climate change, the overwhelming majority of the American people know that we're looking at disasters all over this planet because of climate change, and that we have to transform our energy system. So those are just, dealing with net neutrality. Net neutrality is a big issue. Moving to the decriminalization of marijuana is a big issue. So there are a lot of issues out there that I think will bring people into the political process rather than just talking about Trump all day long.
All right, one last question, and because I know you got to go on the the government shutdown. In the event that there is, how much staying power do you think the Democrats will have in terms of holding together? Because if we start getting out, I'm not convinced that Donald Trump doesn't perceive a shutdown in his best interest. He may be right, he may be wrong. I would imagine he's wrong. But how much, with Democrats are far more concerned about the people who are going to be hurt, I think, of this than Republicans in many respects. So how long can Democrats hold out?
Well, that is Sam, that's a very good question, and obviously, I can't give you a definitive answer. I don't know, but this is what I can tell you, because these are my colleagues, and I talk to them every day. There are a variety of reasons as to why people are prepared not to support a 1-month continuing resolution. And for the more conservative members, their reasoning is pretty straightforward, and they are saying, look, we got a $4 trillion government. It is totally irresponsible and wasteful to try to run this on a month-by-month basis. You cannot. Yesterday, very, very interesting, and I think a significant addition to this whole debate, a tweet was sent out, I don't know if you saw this, from the Pentagon. Yes. This is what they said. We have been working under a continuing resolution for 3 years now. Our current CR expires tomorrow. This is wasteful and destructive. We need a fully funded fiscal year 18 budget or face ramifications on our military. And that's true. But it's not just the military. So when you have the military saying you can't run a government month to month, you're the Secretary of Defense. How the hell do you run a military month to month? You need long-term planning. So I think a lot of the more conservative Democrats are making clear that is a great concern to them. And I don't think that's going to change.
And I mean, is there a document out there? I mean, these are numbers that theoretically, right? This is not a surprise that there's going to be a need for a budget that theoretically should go longer than a month. And my understanding is a month makes it easy so that people don't have to make real hard decisions,
Right.
you know, and vote for something that may contain things that they have an issue with. But is there a document? I mean, like, how long is it going to take to actually get one that would be a genuine fiscal 2018 budget?
Sam, I think it could be done a lot faster than you think.
Okay.
All right, because, I think there is absolutely majority support. There'll be disagreements, but they can be worked out. How much money should we spend to rebuild Puerto Rico? Well, I have a number, somebody else has a number, but I think we can work it out. How much money should we spend for the Defense Department? There'll be disagreements on that, but ultimately I think a compromise will be reached. Should we fund non-defense needs at the same level as defense? Well, we've done that for previous budgets. I think we could do it on a fifth. So I think we're not that far apart. But the key point is that Mitch McConnell has got to understand he has to negotiate. Once he does that, I think we can make some progress.
Senator Bernie Sanders, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate you joining us. And, of course, I appreciate your work.
Well, you too. Keep up the good work, Sam. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, folks.
I just got it. No, this this guy said, I'm filling in everything he says with "you little prick." Thanks for that.
I was gonna say I kept thinking it was Michael's impression. I'm also upset I didn't get to ask him about Bitcoin.
Yeah,
I know you guys want to talk.
Hey, Senator Sanders, good stuff. Bitcoin. I think a lot of people don't understand it.
All right. Well, folks, we're going to have to wrap up. I know people were on hold for quite a bit during the show. I apologize for that. We got a couple more IMs, and then we got to go. We will be back Monday. It will be a Michael Monday on Monday, and but we will be live on that time. Secret Identity Politics. I'm Andrew from Ohio. I called in about the Sam Harris-Ben Shapiro podcast last week. Just wanted to say I live in Richard from Ohio's hometown, and if you would like to fight me and my partner, Snoozin Sarandon, who's owed a shofar, by the way. Then the ball is in his court. Bash nerds left his best, turn aborted fetuses into Bitcoin. I'm just saying we should have a free exchange of ideas. Rural Oklahoma, what are Jamie's thoughts on anarcho-communism? She's totally in favor of that, but we will talk more about that. Talk more about Generation Z, please. Abelard, we should have a day where Jamie will lay that out for us.
Oh, yeah, and I can totally answer MMT guy's question.
Well, let's not do that now. Abel Ard, I would like to just point out that when Sam was going all Tool time yesterday with the remodeler collar, he referred to the Tool brand as Old Milwaukee, which, as any college freshman knows, is the name of a beer. The brand is called Milwaukee. Yes, I know, but I was saying it's the Old Milwaukee.
Shut up, Rachel. Don't pretend.
Sam, the Tool Man Cedar.
Don't pretend.
Old DeWalt. But I'm curious. Sam started to say that he had heard about a new brand of tool, but he never got to say which one it was. I'm trying to remember what it is. A couple of different people had recommended it to me.
Short.
The metal twisty one.
No. Cindy J. We need a Judy Gold as senator. I want to hear her on the Senate floor. Jimmy Reefer Cake actually makes me want to not smoke pot. 3 more. Henry Wallace. Sam, did Jimmy Reefer Cake say you shot Seth Rich? What does he have on you? Born Blue, body shaming Trump is as much about his hypocrisy as anything else. As Judy said, he judges everyone on appearance and is utterly deluded about his own. Also, Occupy Democrats have put out a compilation of video of Trump appearances criticizing Obama for the previous shutdown with quotes like, "The president has to lead," good weaponizing of his own words. And the final IM of the week, the DX Fool Hi, folks. Could you tell me the song that played underneath you and Digby last week during the second hour of 4 hours with her on Ring of Fire at the 118 mark? It played for 5 minutes and was really irritating. Also, Bruce Valanche and Judy together in Greenwich, Connecticut next weekend, question mark? What? Bye!
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth